A dark story of war, and it all started on the battlefield. It can be seen that in several places there has been a lot of blood that has been stained. The blood comes from the many corpses that were killed. Then the corpses died pathetically. They died by being mutilated. Some corpses died with their hands cut off, and all the corpses that were killed were just left on the ground. From that incident, it turned out that there was a young man who was still conscious, with a limp growth condition, while bleeding from his mouth, and also an arm from his limbs that had been cut off. Chung Myung was the name of that man. And then Chung Myung stood up. Then he said that now all that was left of this place is death. And on what basis did this kind of bloodshed happen? After that, suddenly he heard a voice from around him, a master, with his mouth let out a lot of blood, and the arm from his hand was severed, and he tried to say something. He said, Sayongjang Mun, Sajay, Sajils. Sayong is a senior address for students who are under the care of the same master. Sajay is a junior address, and the last one is Sajil, which is a student of Sayong or Sajay. After that, suddenly the sword swiftly sliced his body into two pieces. The halves of his body were far apart due to the sword, and the sword seemed to cut the body of an elder so fast that it was hard to see. Then, Chung Myung, who saw that, felt very angry, said that all of them were dead. That out of all the deaths, there were more than 20 sects, and also included 10 big sects, and also some of the best military units. But all of them had already died. And they died with swords in their bodies. Then, seen from a pile of corpses, a man was seen sitting on top of a pile of corpses, and the man was sitting on top of him with his body stuck by dozens of swords, and the man's name was Chun Ma. Then Chung Myung said that this massacre was all because of that man. He is an ibis sent from the sky. He came from a group of evil people and returned to the world by making it a bloodbath, and he is also the leader of a devil-worshipping sect. Then, Chun Ma from on top of the heap said something. Flower Mountain Sect, what a shame. Disciple of Flower Mountain Sect, if only you manage to get out of this place alive. You can tell of your victory if you can kill me with all your life, but it seems only this is what you can achieve. And after Chun Ma said that he recognized the sword art of the Flower Sect as the best in the world, Chung Myung suddenly took out a sword and said, "Shut up." Then, while Chun Ma was speaking, Chung Myung, holding the sword in his hand, quickly ran towards Chun Ma, who was sitting. Then he quickly cut his throat, and instantly a part of his body fell off, and Chun Ma died. Then, Chung Myung said that this is all over, and there is no death that I can't avoid, even if it came to me. Then he said, what will happen to the Flower Mountain Sect from now on? Because every member of the Flower Mountain Sect and also their followers have lost lives in this place, and leave helpless children. Then, Chung Myung in his dying and weak condition fell asleep among the piles of corpses. And after Chung Myung managed to kill Chun Ma, who brought destruction from the chaos in this world, he breathed his last on the mountaintop of the demon worship sect headquarters. However, as soon as Chung Myung's memory returns to his past life, he remembers when he was a child, he was practicing swordsmanship with his teacher, regretfully telling himself that even though he is from that sect, he doesn't fully follow all the teachings of that sect, and he says if only he was more serious in following the teachings of the sect, and also, if he was stronger, maybe he could change the ending of this tragedy. While feeling regretful and worried about the sect in his memory, his teacher said that there was no need for regrets and that the Flower Mountain Sect would continue no matter what. And then, on the other hand, arriving at a small hut, Chung Myung realized shouldn't be dead. And suddenly after that, there was Wang Cho, who was angry and holding a stick. Wang Cho said, "Were you delirious just now when you were sleeping?" Then suddenly Wang Cho severely hit him on the head with a stick, causing a bump on Chung Myung's head. And when his mother tried to hit him back for wanting to teach him a lesson, Chung Myung with his short arms tried to block it, but because he realized for so long that his arms were short and made him unable to parry, he was again hit hard by Wang Cho many times. Then, Chung Myung was in a lake, with his nose bleeding from the blow. He reflected in a river, and he said, "Who is this boy?" He felt confused about what was going on. Was this a reincarnation mentioned in Buddhism? And then he decided to confirm this statement with his own eyes. He asked the boy about his current name, after inquiring about the location of the mountain that was revealed to be Shanxi province. But he soon found out that his current body wasn't of the best quality, because he was fast, ran out of stamina, and fell right on his face, unable to continue. He was in this state, Chung Myung decided to turn his greatest weakness into his greatest strength. As a result, he had the extraordinary idea of learning martial arts on his own. After finding a secluded place, he decided to relearn the balance of basic techniques that purify one's body. Finally, he managed to gather his energy into the dAnime Energy Center. But due to running out of strength, he decided to ask for food, and recovered. But he was encountered by some local beggars who were looking for a fight. After learning the balance, easily beat them, and then rushed to the head of the Mountain Sect, this time asking to join the sect. Chun Myung's appearance appeared with black hair and pink eyes. He had fair skin and was considered handsome. Chun Myung's personality is usually carefree and playful, but when he has a goal, he sets his mind to it. Even though Chun Myung greets the head with a smile, we find out that they don't allow anyone to join the sect anymore, let alone behind the smile innocent. Chun Myung is revealed to be irritated. In flashback, we find out that he, after enduring hardships endlessly to achieve his goal, found his pride and joy, and the tattered training ground is now nothing but a ground plane, and the temple is nowhere to be found. However, Chun Myung realizes this is not his fault, currently claiming that they must be having a hard time keeping the sect from disappearing. However, he also discovers that one of the sect's most prized artifacts has been sold back to the current Chun Myung with a vengeance. Asking the leader to join the sect, to his surprise, the leader agreed to his request, stating that they don't chase away birds that come to them seeking refuge. He then tells his aide Unam to prepare for the entrance ceremony. However, his logic turns out to be a shared room, and he soon gets into trouble as the other students mistake him for a thief. When Gull students start screaming and Chun Myung, all the other displays also start appearing. Suddenly their training purple teacher also appears. Chun Myung introduces himself, and the gum tells him to rest, so he can participate in tomorrow's training. The next day, Gold tries to use up his seniority and tries to bully and taunt Chang Mi. But Chun Myung is too overpowered to easily manage to make his seniors bow down in front of him. After going through the beating, he asks Skull about what happened to the temple. The temple, he knows, the remaining power of the Devil Sect. After death, Chun Ma marched to Mount Hua and said it was burnt, resulting in heavy destruction. Later on, Anum called Chang Mang to join the training, where he saw that children were being taught sword techniques. He had never been heard of, claiming this was to slow down students' progress. He headed to training there. He also asked what they studied, however becomes disillusioned after seeing a technique she deemed useless being used as a passing test, and decides to take matters into her own hands. The student is exhausted and rests on the ground, while Chun Myung continues her training. Fascinated by Chun Myung's attempt at her looking at her, but knowing that she was almost at her limit, telling him to take a breather, then proceeded to use bedtime to practice. In an innocent way, she claimed that all the students had agreed to this training, adding that no one complained. With some more exquisite sophistication, she managed to convince him to allow it train students for another month. As some time passes, Chun Myung gets used to it. His life in the temple. While there, he also finds out that Chief Jang is currently weaker compared to our mountain's actions 100 years ago. However, he is determined to make this sect the strongest. While other students complain about Chun Myung to Joe Gull and try to persuade him to talk to him, but his aim is nowhere to be found. He brings senior disciple Yoon Jong with him, where they have a private discussion about the sect. Determination to put more effort into his training, so that one day become a master capable of leading the world. Yoon Jong also agreed with him. While he was listening to their conversation, from the top of the tree, suddenly a large group of men entered through the main gate, where we find out that they are collectors dead who came to settle their debt with the sect. These debt collectors are revealed to be merchants who have to lend money to the Mountain Sect. As they keep coming further into the temple, Anam and Ungum try to stop them, but to no avail. They continued walking to the sect leader's place, or when the pavilion owner stepped forward. He gave a final warning to the sect leader, telling him to repay his debt in 7 days, or they would. Taking ownership of their beloved shrine as collateral, he overhears this and further investigates this finding from another student. According to Chun Myung, Tuo Pavilion originally belonged to a sect, so he claims that something is amiss. He decides to disguise himself and go to meet with the merchants. On the other hand, during the aforementioned meeting, it is revealed that Kong has planned to seize the Hua Temple. The temple will then be sold to the enemies of the Mountain Sect, who are willing to spend fortune to erase the existence of Mount Hua. And after the meeting was over, he met the drunken merchant who was part of the meeting. Using a bit of violence, the merchant finally starts answering Chun Myung. From this talk we learn that the situation got so bad due to the high interest rates on their loans. We also learn that all the businesses around them used to belong to a sect, but somewhere down the line the representatives took them, because suddenly, one of the guards wakes up for round 2. He rushes at Chun Myung and attacks. However, Chun Myung becomes who he is. He easily beats him. When Chun Myung returns home, he orders the other students to start their training. Meanwhile, he wonders what he had to do to protect the sect. He realized that if he could find evidence that this business was formerly the sect's, the claim could not repay the merchants and still maintain their reputation. After giving it some thought, he managed narrowed down the location of an old account that might prove his claim to be somewhere near the sect leader's residence, so he immediately headed out to retrieve it. But he soon learned that searching an entire mountain of even relatively small ones was no easy feat. Thus, he decided to use his technique to search the empty dungeons, claiming this way he would be able to find a storage room. As he continued with his plan, he quickly grew tired. Enduring through this ordeal, he managed to push forward until he found something. He dug up enthusiastically at the signal which he got, only to find the passage gift. When he snuck a peek into the passage, he saw the figure of the current sect leader. As he kept watching over him, he saw he was very sad and hurt. We find out that the sect leader was ruined, the current situation. However, he unable to convey these feelings to the disciples, as they asked for him as support. After the leader left, he tried to open the door, but found a door made of everlast, the strongest known metal, being unable to break down the door. Then, from that technique, he thought that this might be the way to open the door. He used his life energy to perform advanced technique. This, using his full strength, he could open the door, but using his life force had made it very heavy. The damage as he started to go in, he was a bit disillusioned by the fact the room was small and only had 3 bookshelves. Still, he started looking for a notebook and quickly managed to find it there. All the necessary evidence was there, as he still kept it looking. He also found a lot of journal containing techniques. Chun Myung, the leader of the original timeline. Chun Myung has decided not to pass on to the future generations. Moreover, he finds a letter addressed by Chun Myung to the leader of the future. In this letter, Chun Myung tells their successors about the ideals of the sect leader, and we learn how important this sect is to him. However, Chun Myung is suspicious and decides to continue investigating. As he moves the shelf from its place, he discovers a hidden compartment containing gold and gem rewards. He sets up a plan to give these findings and funds to the current leader, who fainted after first seeing the large pile of gold after him. Waking up, he investigated whether this account was true. After confirmation, he decided to let the merchants who stole the treasures of Hua Mountain. Finally confronted and summoned all of them. After being summoned, the merchant made their way up the mountain, but when they all climbed up, they felt hatred towards their choice. They felt guilty for putting them out. He acted in such a way that they had to disperse. Let alone because of the mountain's actions, Huis was the one who had protected this province. Everyone present had some sort of relationship with them. As they reached the level goal, Anum greeted them and took them to meet the sect leader, Haiyan Zhang. As they took greetings, Zhang bowed their heads in front of them. He stated that although the entire debt could not be paid now, they had obtained some funds. So he politely asked if anyone would like to increase the payment date. Then one calm laughed at this statement and suddenly refused. He was the merchant Chun Myung interrogated. A few days ago appeared from within the group. He agreed to get paid and then stated that the mountain sect was the pride of the province and he could not bring himself to destroy the temple. This caused everyone else except Kong to side with Zhu Zhang, thinking their mercy. However, he suddenly changed his attitude and turned to Kong. Revealing the old account, he then stated that all merchants would be stripped of business, and they would continue to take the profits they had made. This made Kong enrages, and he started shouting, but the leader quickly shut him up. The leader also states that he will allow the calm and the merchants to take his side to take the carts filled with riches with them, since their businesses have been taken over when the merchants descend mountain and trying to get into their business, so leader allows them to load their wagon and start moving, but the group also discusses what to do next. Then, he suggests that the sect leader use underhanded methods, and because of that, they should fight together. The authorities take back their business, but they are intercepted by Chun Myung. After learning that he is from the sect, Kong summons his bodyguards, but they are all defeated in the blink of an eye. Still standing upright, Kong then decides to fight Chun Myung himself. And as they fight, Kong tries his best to spoil Chun Myung, but he becomes irritated after seeing that this is all just a joke to Chun Myung Mayo, looking very bored. He then started to wonder why a skilled Kong like him was walking regularly. After getting nothing but excuses, he was forced to rely on his interrogation tactics. He then started to attack while his opponent was trying to defend himself, but he was unable to do so. So when Chung Myung decides to finish off his enemy, Kong, who is scared to death, decides to use his special technique. But Chun Myung stops his attack just as it hits and reveals that Kong is a member of the Southern Edge sect. Chun Myung tries to get answers calmly. He seems irritated that he has toppled himself as a member of the South Edge. Chun Myung then states how the world of martial arts has fallen so low and has become so dishonorable. However, Kong counters by stating that the mount he is on now, having lost his technique, is in the process of breaking down. As he claims that he should thank him for not delaying the inevitable, this angers Chun Myung, and he dies to show Kong a glimpse of his power. Before treating him, he then turns his attention to the other merchants hiding Chun Myung and orders them to give him the equivalent of the goods in their cart. They hesitantly agree, fearing the worst once they bring the money. To be more serious about their martial arts, Joe Gold looked at his comrades and was happy to see such a bond between them. He also talked to Yoon Jung. They both rejoiced at the fact that everyone's attitude had changed. They also claimed the sudden change in each person. Later, he was thanked for Chun Myung's arrival. When they returned to their residence, they found many workers present there. Surprised, they went and asked them what happened, only to find out that the temple was in the process of being repaired, thanks to the large funds they managed to find during their dinner. Also received meat and 2 sets of training uniforms. After dinner, he resumes talking and decides to prepare himself for what is to come. Meanwhile, Chun Myung is at the sect leader's residence, where he is being treated. Zhang asks him what he wants, and as a reward for his contribution, he asks for freedom to leave the mount occasionally. However, the leader denies this, stating, "This is outside the rules." Then, after a bit of thought, Chun Myung asks for the life pills and elixirs that enjoy one's health. However, after hearing this, the leader allows him to leave the temple, over time revealing that he doesn't have any pills for himself. A disciple, after kicking Chun Myung out, the cult leader requests his presence Onam and sings about their interpretation of him. Both of them unanimously agreed that he was not the least bit childish. Moreover, he gave off an aura similar to that of an adult. The leader also asked about reconstruction. He was also said to be in charge of interpreting the technique they had recently discovered, but said differently, claiming that it was looking too young to be 100 years old. But he believed this was the work of someone who helped the sect but needed to keep his identity a secret. While Chun Myung was angry after being kicked out and denied his reward, we also found out that he had rewritten the technique and then given it to the leader. We also learned that after using many advanced techniques, Chun Myung's body is now a mess, not healing fast enough. So the reason he asked for a life pill, suddenly by old memory he knew where his supplies were. A pill, perhaps he rushed down a cliff and into a secret cave. But his efforts don't go well, because the cliff, in his own words, is very difficult to climb. When Chun Myung climbs the dreaded mountain, where there is no footing, he expresses how difficult it is to climb this steep mountain. Suddenly, he lost his grip and started to fall, but he managed to cheat death thanks to the safety rope he had prepared. As a result, he used a technique to gain momentum to ascend, which proved to be too much for his body. His bones began to break down as he cursed his weak body, but he managed to find the entrance of his hideout. As a result, he built up the momentum to enter the cave, when the rope suddenly broke off, and he threw away. Fortunately, he still managed to reach the entrance, and entered there. He found the snow and plum blossom pills that he had previously hidden, because of their extraordinary recovery ability. Because of that, he then consumed them and refined, to absorb them with infinite focus. Unchallenged, he continued his purification and allowed the product to enter his density. This gave him a rush of power, and he began to shine. Suddenly, he found that his body had healed all the fractures, and his wounds were all healed and closed, because it was revealed that his body was perfectly matched with Kai's intake of pills. Because he was shocked by the pills, Kai's effectiveness suddenly started overflowing, and his Danson wall broke. He tried to bully Kai, but unable to do so. He suddenly remembered the conversation with his late master and heeded his words. He let Kyle in. The end, he found himself above him, danced to find that even the walls would crumble. But he managed to overcome the situation thanks to his master's words and returned to the human realm. He was also shocked that his body managed to endure the overflow Kai, which states how even small mistakes can happen. Later, He is paralyzed or worse dead. However, he can still feel the immense power inside of him and decides to leave. He takes the pills with him, claiming they can help others. After remembering the happy memories from his past life, Chun Myung heads to the Mount Hua Sect, leaping through the air and descending the mountain, meanwhile returning to the disciples' inn. The disciples woke up in the freezing midnight to begin their special training. Some of the disciples discussed how Chun Myung's condition had gotten worse, so the disciples asked questions, whether they can stop it. Their initial training as the only reason they did this, it was that Chun Myung was untouchable now that he was sick. They could arrange to knock him out if they ganged up on him. But all this talk and discussion slipped by when Chun Myung arrived looking better than previously. He then apologized to them, stating, how could he not supervise their training properly? Now that he is fine, they will now train harder and tell them to climb the Lotus Mountain. Setting a huge punishment for half slow, Yoonjong and Jo Gul enthusiastically came out and started their climb, while the others slowly followed. After their climb, everyone was exhausted and fell to the ground, except for Yoonjang, who showed his strong mentality. But Chun Myung appeared untired. They then ate. After that, Chun Myung gives everyone this flower pill, increasing everyone's strength, leaving even the gum. Suddenly, the sect leader appears asking for the gum. He shows him a technique book, which Chun Myung finds leaves the gum speechless. The book is revealed to have notes from the previous sect leader stating that they should stick to the original balance technique. This makes Bubblegum reconsiders her training methods, as she is shown to think that the ancestor's will should be followed by the successor. However, she decides against it, as the sect has no time to readjust, and the students are used to them. Current technique. But thanks to Chun Myung's training, the students have developed the fundamentals of the old technique as shown, and are noticed by the sect leader at Gum Suspects that this is Chun Myung's doing, and inadvertently ask him about what they should do. Regarding the future technique, his next answer surprised the leader, who decided to change the basic technique of Hua Mountain Sect to the real one, meaning Chun Myung was angry at them, because he claimed that the leader in the Ungum was incompetent, and the sect was useless without him, like some person. Time passed. The Mountain Sect has now prospered again, has solved its financial problems, and has become famous thanks to the persistence of the students. This was something that was meant to be. But Chun Myung sits and wonders why they are currently in chaos, according to Jo Gul. This because the Mount Hua Sect's business was too much to handle. He claimed most of the previous workers left, after the Hua Sect took back the business and the sect leaders lacked business sense. He also added that there was still nothing to thank Elder Wang, who sponsored them. Then, suddenly Unum tasked Chun Myung to deliver a letter to the Merchant Guild. Elder H. Wang's Yuna naturally on her way. She opened the letter and found out that Elder H. Wang was very sick. His kaiban was acting out of control, and he had also lost more consciousness. Furthermore, after hearing his symptoms, Chun Myung remembered something as he himself continued reading. He learned that many doctors had failed to diagnose Elder Huink, and because of that, they offered a large reward to the person who gave them information about his illness. However, Chun Myung claims that an ordinary doctor will be able to cure his illness, adding that his illness, known as the Devil's Flower, which has symptoms that look the same as poisoning, though quite dangerous. Chun Myung doesn't really care about it. As he reveals, the Devil's Flower appears after the victim was attacked by the same sect's Heavenly Demon Sect's various techniques. She sacrificed her life to stop. Because of that, she decided to see Elder H. Wang with both eyes, and helped the money back in the temple. Jo Gul and Yoon found a note from Chun Myung that telling them that he would be away for a few days, so they needed to protect him. And then, on the other hand, he sees Chun Myung in town drinking. When he encounters some arrogant martial artists, those martial artists descended from the Southern Edge Sect's old rival of their Mountain Sect, further provoking and taunting Chun Myung and his sect. As a result, they get them, handed over to them in the blink of an eye. When he attacks and treats them, Chun Myung reveals that all nearby sects are sworn enemies. And then, as they competed against each other to find out who was stronger, as a result the Mount Hua Sect then avoided direct confrontation with the South Edge Sect, and avoided Shanxi City. However, this was different for Chun, who wandered wherever he wanted, while it's Yuna's guild. Elder H. Wang is being examined again, but the doctor still doesn't help Elder H. Wang's son. Zhonghui is worried about his father's condition. Suddenly, an elder from the Southern Edge Sect enters and states that they should accept reality, and that the only way to treat Elder Twang is a Taoist ritual. But he seems to have an underlying motive then. Chun Myung finally arrives at the entrance of the temple. Zhang Wei comes out to greet him, but is disappointed to see only one child, let alone someone who is obviously greedy to attend. Zhang Wei inquires about the reason for Chun Myung's arrival and learns that he has knowledge of an unknown disease. But due to the intervention of Moxium, Zhang Wei convinced himself that this son would not be able to help his father. Therefore, Zhang Wei asked Chun Myung to leave and come back. Arrogant Elder H, upon hearing this, Zhang Wei sees hope in his father's recovery. He invites Chun Myung to pay attention to his disapproval and anger. When Chun Myung reaches a near-death state similar to Elder's, he realizes that his condition is worse than he expected. When he does his inspection, however, he found that his illness was incomplete and healed the leader a bit. Known as he claimed that this illness was passed on by an insider who had exposed Elder H. Wang to Kai, their demon, for a long time. On the other hand, he was annoyed at Chun Myung because of his behavior and because he was led to the Merchants Guild. Despite being a lowly sect disciple even further, he seems to really hate the real Chun Myung and expresses how angry he is because of the boy who had arrived with the same name as him. Suddenly became a second-rate disciple of the Southern Edge sect who sat with Moxium, declared that he shouldn't let it bother him, yet he claimed that he had no choice. Since the boy was in the process of healing the elder, the disciple suddenly came up with an idea that stated that they can Chun Myung out with a spear. However, he disapproved, claiming this would drag down their name and legacy. Unfortunately, his words had a fundamental message that his disciples understood, because these students left behind the claim that they could not hold a candle to the Mountain Sect when he was young, and therefore they must stop that time, so as not to return. So that the South Bank sect can still be on top, while the second-year students put Chun Myung in the spot, and introduce himself as Song Bikli. He also asks for a duel, which Chun Myung happily agrees to, but as the fight is about to start, while getting up in arms. After Chun Myung insulted and provoked him when they started, Chun Myung asked his opponent to lend him a weapon, which he thought could be very rude, although this zombie Klee borrowed it and finally gave it up. As the battle started, Song Bikli rushed to Chun Myung and unleashed a powerful attack, strong and scary. However, Chun Myung blocks it with little effort, but she keeps pushing forward again and again, hoping to damage her enemy, but she is unable to do so. As she states Chun Myung is reading the trajectory of her sword, she tries again only to deflect the attack once more, and angry that his skill is considered one of the best in his sect. Easily dealt with, he lost his temper and rushed at Chun Myung again. However, this time he used a very advanced technique. Luckily, he came back to the right state of mind after hearing one of his comrades burst into tears and was barely able to stop his attack. Even though he's stopping, Chun Myung is sent flying back to the wall he crashed into, at high speed and seemingly taking heavy damage, claiming that he removed Kai from the zombie attack. He is distraught after seeing Chun Myung vomiting blood, unlike anyone he has met in his past. Then, suddenly Zhang Wei stumbles upon the battle, after hearing the commotion, only to find Chun Myung injured. The medics rush him for treatment, after witnessing his condition. On the other hand, he is very angry at Song Bikli. He states that he thinks the South Bank sect is right. However, after witnessing it a one-sided battle, he ordered him to leave the premises immediately. Suddenly, he too walks in and sees the mess being created. He tries to calm Zhang Wei only to make him angrier. He again tells Maxim to leave the guild along with his students, and he agrees. However, he tells Song Bikli to stay back and do whatever possible to get returned to Zhang Wei's faith. Meanwhile, Zhang Wei entrusts a doctor to cure Chun Myung, so that his father's treatment can be continued later that night. A suspicious man enters Chun Myung's room and tries to kill him while he is sleeping. However, Chun Myung is seen waiting in anticipation of this man's arrival. Mysterious man. It tries to attack Chun Myung, but Chun Myung looks awake and easily dodges its attack. Soon Zhang Wei and his guards appear, revealing this was all his plan, claiming that criminals will appear. If Chun Myung is in a precarious situation, he is revealed to be a general of the Yuna Merchant Union named Jabok Bun. After the show is over, he tries to convince Zhang Wei that he is not a sick person. Elder H. Wayne claims he can't do such a thing, after he treats him very well like Zhang Wei. And the general bickering back and forth, Chun Myung gets tired of his excuses and rushes to attack. But after being hit by the attack, the general deliberately proves himself to be a poisoner, with evidence, but the general refuses to dismount, stealthily attacks Zhang Wei and his guards. Luckily, he appears after Chun Myung's indication. Song Bikli understands the situation and attacks him to defeat him. after a long protracted battle, finally managed to subdue his opponent, after an hour of battle, after the capture of the enemy. How confident he was acting in front of everyone, he revealed that he was still determining as to whether or not he could actually heal the elder with a twitch, since right now he wasn't the strongest version of himself. However, he decided to try his best and try to get his Cayenne into the body, elder, so that he can fight Demon Kai from within. But thanks to the pure Kai from the flower pill that Chung Myung consumed, he was able to easily subdue the Demon Kai, but then decided to go to the head of the elder, where Chung Myung could not just attack. Luckily, he had a plan. Chung Myung then let all the Demon Kai remaining within the elder's body to enter his body, causing Chung Myung to experience excruciating pain and suffering. After barely escaping the pain, Chung Myung pulled himself together and stood back up in front of the demonic Kai within him, but now had no place to go. Running demonic Kai also tries his best to take over his body. However, after being left barely able to fight Chung Myung, Mayan uses his last resort, stating he doesn't want this situation to happen. It happened that he used all the Kai in his lair to eliminate demonic Kyle at once, despite the difficult conditions and situation. Chun Myung managed to fight his enemy and barely managed to cheat death immediately. After Elder H. Wang also managed to wake up and regain consciousness because of the incident at Yuna Merchant Guild finished thanks to him. General Jabokbun is captured and reveals himself to be the son of a rival merchant who tried to get all the wealth. Furthermore, he adds that he only managed to get hold of a devil's technique after happening to a corpse with Demon Kai in it. After the mess, Chun Myung is being treated and given a feast when Elder H. Wang appears before him and asks something of him first. Bowed his head to thank him for curing his illness, and asked to know what he wanted as a reward for saving his life. Chun Myung, however, claimed that due to urgent circumstances, he was unable to obtain permission from his sect and came rushing over to help like that. He asked them not to tell this incident to his sect and asked them a large amount of cash. Since the elder agreed with his gift, Zhong Wei later visited his father and chatted with him. Then afterwards declaring the new policy of cutting dealing with the sects of the South Bank could prove dangerous as they are very influential. However, Elder H. Wang revealed that if his hopes of the growth of the Hua Mountain Sect come true, they would reap huge profits by helping them under the circumstances. They currently, though fully convinced, Zhong Wei agreed with his father's plan and believed in it. Meanwhile, after getting fat from all the food, Chun Myung meets again, who gives him a wooden sword and asks him to duel again. Songbik already knows that Chun Myung is stronger than him in martial arts, but he can't understand what happened to him last time, because he thinks Chun Myung tricked him. Chun Myung assures him that he will regret this time, even though Chun Myung thinks he is almost 10 years younger than him, and at least a generation later than him. While Songbik can't understand why she feels such heavy pressure from him when he fight with elders. New Martial Arts 12 moves no flower sword against Chun Myung Maya, but she fought very bravely, and Songbik got very injured. Chun Myung got very angry, and she asked Songbik that how did she learn that art. She told him that he can fool everyone but can't fool him. It's a sword art that contains the essence of Mount Hua. One of the sword techniques, the strokes of the 24 movement Plum Blossom, also this technique has been lost, even within the sects of Mount Songbik. Think he has felt the horror as he faced the demon. He opened his eyes, in a room where Chun Myung sat beside him and told him that he would soon recover from his wounds. The sect wouldn't recognize him when they used it openly. He also told him that the only one who knew this sword art would be a first-year disciple, revealed that the one who completed this sword art was still in the south. The Edge sect in the past, when the Mountain Sect was attacked by the Heavenly Demon Sect, most of its people were powerless, as they were annihilated in the endless great mountains. The remaining members of the Hua Mountain Sect were just children. It was the time when the heroes of the Southern Edge sect helped people the Mount Hua Sect, because if they sat quietly while the neighboring sects were attacked by the Heavenly Demon Sect, they would be criticized by the junks. But the problem was that they were only acting to help, when in fact they stole the martial arts manual. Moreover, it was not even the Heavenly Demon Sect that burned the Mountain Sect. And then, he could forbid her to learn martial arts, because she thought she couldn't master this kind of art. Many thoughts flashed through her mind. She thought maybe she was the cause of this incident because she always beat people. And then, South Bank easily he considers them stupid, because if he was a part of South Bank's sect he would summon the Supreme Sword. He advises Songbik that he must find out what is needed for his own growth. He thinks he needs to become stronger, more quick to take revenge. He thought that the people of Southern Edge should thank them instead of messing with them. They should pay Price Hyun-young to call and ask him about Chung Myung's absence. Since it had been 7 days, he thought this was unacceptable that a third grader was absent for 7 days without getting permission to do so. But suddenly they hear that Chun Myung will be arriving at the Mountain Sect. The sect leader rushes out to meet him himself, but Hyun-young thinks he shouldn't spoil the boy by worshipping him too much. He thought rewards and punishments should be given accordingly, but they shouldn't forget about raising disciples to be upright. Don't accept the punishment even if it's wrong. Then the boy won't know what wrong he did, the leader assures them. That he's the one who wants Chun Myung to grow up upright. The worst shows that he needs to be locked up in the penitentiary building for at least half a year. All people agree with the idea. And then Chun Myung comes and greets their sect leader, asking him about the valid reasons, and if he fails to do so, he will get the punishment according to the leader's request. They not to rebuke the kid. Suddenly Mr. H. Wang appears there, and everyone is shocked to see him. Mr. H. Wang tells everyone that Chun Myung saved his life, suggesting that they should reward him for the sect's leader honoring Chun Myung, and Huang states that the Yuna Merchants Guild owes a great debt to the Mountain's actions. And in gratitude he wanted to invest in the Mountain Sect. He wanted to put everything that belonged to him to the sect leader. And Mount Hua Sect is happy that Chun Myung has brought blessings to Master Huang, revealing that he will be in charge of business from now on. But he has 2 conditions. First, they must not keep the money earned, but must use it for the development of Mount Hua Sect. Second, they have to show a third grader a favor. The sect leader suggests they should teach him a secret martial arts manual, but he rejects the idea, and the sect leader is shocked to see Hyun's behavior. But then he finds out that he is grateful to Chun Myung, because now he will be able to pay his requirements every month, and still have money left over. He suggests that they continue to send him so he can get more achievements. They suggest giving him the flower sword, or perhaps let him take whatever he likes from the library. Master Huang believes that the Yunha Merchant Guild has a good chance of benefiting from supporting the Hua Mountain Sect, but also revealing that he has made enemies with the South Bank Sect. And then Chun Myung knows that Hyun is taking advantage of him. He thinks the world is a scary place. There are lots of ghosts and devils. He asks Hyun to find out some things for him. Hyun thinks he can't read his mind. Then it is known that the Mountain Sect Hua was known as the Dragon's Nest, because the dragon lived in the Hua Mountain Sect before anyone noticed. If Chun Myung used this information properly, then it could help the Merchants Guild, Yuha, become the greatest Merchants Guild in the world. And then, that they need to organize it and leave the Mountain Sect. Chun Myung thinks he is a wise man, because he has lived his life in the business world, negotiating and arguing with others. But he has got rid of poverty, the biggest obstacle ever. Preventing the Hua Mountain Sect from resurrecting Yuna's Merchant Guild was indeed strong, but none of the disciples of the Hua Mountain Sect had managed to make the merchants manage to stabilize the business in Huam so quickly. While young Haiyan, the financial and economic leader of the agency, smiles all the time. The situation on the mountain acts peacefully like a stream of water. While Chun Myung does training with other students at night, the disciples now take Keenan's interest in training, and they are getting stronger and healthier. Gum thinks, where is Chun Myung doing his training, since he often visits Yuna Merchant Guild. Chun Myung is doing his training and trying to learn body and sword fusion. And then, he saw another person also doing training there. The other person was basically the unwavering Twilight Beauty. Her sword dancing was like a plum blossom. Chun Myung thought he saw Hua Mountain Pass sword art in a girl's sword dance in Under the Moonlight. He asks Chun Myung about his identity. Chun Myung thinks, if he wasn't so young, he might fall in love with that girl. He recognized him by his uniform. He asked third graders can't leave the sect after sunset. Senior, he asked him to get out of there when the sun is about to rise too. He forbade him to take a place in the practice ground. Someone Jang Mayan thought he should start looking for a place, new training. Chun Myung finds out that their seniors are coming to ascend the Hua sect, and they don't like half-word with them being exposed, that they all left the mountain to do the training. Doors are closed on their own, because the training facilities here are not well maintained. Chun Myung also finds out that a conference will be held between Hua Mountain and Southern Edge. It is a martial arts competition, where Hua Mountain Sect and Southern Edge Sect gather every year to see what they have accomplished over the past year. He also reveals that their students always being beaten by the Southern Edge disciples, and if they failed again this time, then their seniors and elders would not be able to show their faces around. Chun Myung promised that he would not let his people go. This time the sect leader was also worried about the conference, but he thinking, if he avoids the situation, people of South Edge Sect will consider them cowards. Sect leader orders to prepare good food and alcohol for senior students. Chun Myung thinks it's the one who can win the fight, and Yunjong will need an easier fight. Chun Myung changed the training method and called all the disciples in the middle of the night. He told them to win or die. He encouraged them, saying they are quite strong and also they have trained well, but they must not say that they have no chance against Southern Edge Sect. Win against them, even though Yunjong will need a bit of luck on his side, he tells them, that they only need to win by using the sword. Chun Myung just dodged all the slashes without attacking at all, because he knew where Zhou's aim would attack next, and dodged his sword easily. He was surprised to see Zhou's aim knew how to use Kai's sword. Chun Myung asked how it felt to almost die, and advised him to rest. He attacked all the senior brothers, but none could block his attack and fell to the ground. And then, Zhou told him that this happened because he was so fast and strong, that they couldn't block his attacks even if they did. Knew about them, he told them some fighting skills. In a simple way, he told them that since they couldn't use the six-fold combo sword technique, which was the basic one in the Mountain Sect, he asked third graders can't leave the sect after sunset. Senior, he asked him to get out of there when the sun is about to rise too. He forbade him to take a place in the practice ground. Someone Zhang Mayan thought he should start looking for a place new training. Chun Myung finds out that their seniors are coming to ascend the Hua Sect, and they don't like half-word with them being exposed. That they all left the mountain to do the training. Doors are closed on their own because the training facilities here are not well maintained. Chun Myung also finds out that a conference will be held between Hua Mountain and Southern Edge. It is a martial arts competition where Hua Mountain Sect and Southern Edge Sect gather every year to see what they have accomplished over the past year. He also reveals that their students always being beaten by the Southern Edge disciples, and if they failed again this time, then their seniors and elders would not be able to show their faces around. Chun Myung promised that he would not let his people go. This time the sect leader was also worried about the conference, but he thinking, if he avoids the situation, people of South Edge Sect will consider them cowards. Sect leader orders to prepare good food and alcohol for senior students. Chun Myung thinks it's the one who can win the fight, and Yunjong will need an easier fight. Chun Myung changed the training method and called all the disciples in the middle of the night. He told them to win or die. He encouraged them, saying, they are quite strong, and also they have trained well, but they must not say that they have no chance against Southern Edge Sect. Win against them, even though Yunjong will need a bit of luck on his side, he tells them, that they only need to win by using the sword. Chun Myung just dodged all the slashes without attacking at all, because he knew where Zhou's aim would attack next, and dodged his sword easily. He was surprised to see Zhou's aim knew how to use Kai's sword. Chun Myung asked how it felt to almost die, and advised him to rest. He attacked all the senior brothers, but none could block his attack and fell to the ground. And then, Zhou told him that this happened because he was so fast and strong, that they couldn't block his attacks even if they did. Knew about them, he told them some fighting skills. In a simple way, he told them that, since they couldn't use the six-fold combo sword technique, which was the basic one in the Mountain Sect, then they wouldn't be able to use other techniques like Petalfall Sword and Ursa Major. And then, the steps they must learn to freely utilize everything they know. He convinces them to win. Since that is the only thing that matters when they fight, he orders them to start by doing 10,000 swings. The thought cult leader, Chun Myung, is the kind of guy who will say that if you beat up a dog enough, it will learn to do a handstand for you. Chun Myung listens to him, and he thinks he's doing a good job training his students. Alive, and even without me, he wants to be stronger than anyone in the world, stronger than he was in the past, and stronger than the Heavenly Demon. He thought he should find his own sword art that would help him transcend to a new level. But this is not. It would be easy. Suddenly he appears there and he wonders, why can't he feel her presence? There he thought he might have learned assassin art. So strangely his presence is weak. He heard about Plum Blossom. Chun Myung himself thought he can act naturally so that he escapes. And then after that, he was the only witness this time, so no one would believe him. But he had to be careful. By the time the seniors arrived, they were already wearing sect uniforms and seemed to be around 30 years old. Plum Blossom pattern on their chest. They asked about him and found out that he probably went to Hua Mountain first because he didn't listen to anyone. They served him food and alcohol. They treasured their elder brother because he had worked hard all the time, and they just followed in his footsteps. And he thanked everyone, wishing to be comfortable according to him. The gap between the Mountain Sect and Southern Edge had widened so far that they could not be compared to them. They had worked as hard as they could, and they believed that their hard work will never betray them. And then she asks him about the sect. He is from, and what is his name? They wonder if a boy who is barely 15 years old orders expensive dishes and drinks alcohol. Chun Myung tells them that he is just a passerby and asks them to finish their food. And then Big Brother thinks they should introduce themselves to each other, but Chun Myung gets distracted by it and hides his face. He asks Big Brother why is he so gentle. He has to go and do some official stuff, and runs from there. Seeing your brother was shocked like Chun Myung. Myung dodged his grasslock technique. Without looking at him, he thought maybe his hands slipped, so the kid ran edge sect because they need to improve their basic. He wonder when he can make this group of people into proper martial arts. Destination Joe was surprised to see Chun Ma had been drinking alcohol. Wanted to rest for a while, but finally he sleeps. Gul tells him that their seniors are back, and they are gathering them, so he has to take a shower soon. Suddenly the smell of alcohol disappears, and he asks Joe Gul how could he say such a thing to a Taoist who pure like him. Chun Myung thinks seniors have pills, and while swinging small sword too, they find it difficult, so they go to drink their hearts. Joe Gul warns him that he has to be careful with his attitude towards them. As a senior, he is very strict, and if he behaves like usual, he will be punished. Everyone at the gate to greet them. The sect leader thinks they feel very different. Chun Myung admits that he is very handsome. Baek Chun recognizes Chun Myung and asks him if they never met before she asked him when he joined the Hua Mountain Sect. And then, before Chun Myung's investigation told his name, Baek Chun told him that they will meet often in the future, so he must remember his name. It is revealed that Baek Chun is also known as the greatest genius of the mountain. He is the person who is trusted to be able to help the fall, and the mountain gets back up. Chun Myung thinks there is a flaw somewhere. Chun Myung looks at Uisol, and he notices that he is also Baek. He believes that he will not be anyone about him. Later, Jugul reveals that Senior is already interested in Senior Baek Chun. Everyone paid their respects to the sect leader halfway through the investigation, ensuring that the training was not difficult, since their sect had given so much to support them. And they had achieved the result announced by the financial leader. A feast for them. The sect leader ordered him to help kids to settle down and relax, and also called Chun Myung to his room and asked Senior about him. But he advised him to ignore it. All the seniors were shocked to see him. They were shocked to see the junior students who were fed up with the meat beak could not understand what happened to the Hua Mountain Sect. It was revealed that a lucky star had fallen into the Mountain Sect. And then he left the room with angry. Everyone asked what had happened to him. They wanted to know why the third-year students didn't scold the youngest child. Even Eungum also acted silent, because this is normal for him. He sat with Yoonjong and Jo Gul. And then, that meant he had the highest power and status to his left. And true Chun Myung was angry that the leader had asked him to go to Yuna Merchant Guild. He was grateful Chun Myung went to the Huam branch. Otherwise she would get sick, and when treating someone who was of a higher rank or older than her. But it seemed this wasn't the case. Part of the question was about her younger sister, because she was with them. When they entered the cafeteria, it had been a long time since they had a party together. So it's not good if someone is missing. They already know that he can't be found. If he doesn't want to be found, Baek is always calm in other things, but when it comes to him, he all leaves the table and leaves. Suddenly he appears there and he becomes very happy. He came in and asked Chun Myung if he could sit beside him. And then, she offered to wait for him until he finished eating. But he wanted to refuse even more, claiming that he was busy thinking. Chun Myung was assigned by the sect leader to go to Xi'an quite often. Chun Myung was behaving in a rude manner which angered his Baek, and he warned her, if he loses his temper, things will look bad for him. He asks him to apologize to seniors, as he did something when they weren't around. And he apologized to everyone. Then Eungum congratulated all the seniors, and they all started celebrating. He knew that according to the rules, Mount Hua Sect, if a third grader left the sect without telling anyone, then it would be even worse for him. And then he wanted to investigate the matter, but Eungum surprised him by saying that it was okay for him. He was surprised that Eungum was a person who was always sensitive about the rules, but in this case, it was okay for him, as a third-year student, to have violated the rules. Baek asks Eungum, who has given Chun Myung authority. He replies with the name of the sect leader. The sect leader enters the canteen, paying greetings to him. He calls the sect leader and asks him about the disappearance, and also tells him that he drinks alcohol. And then, on questioning, he said he was sure about that student. But again, he faced disappointment from him. He thought a third-year student committed a serious offense by going to Huam alone to drink alcohol. But the sect leader said it's normal to drink alcohol for any student, he says. That is good. that he is using his own money, and also his money is used to feed all students. Leader gets angry and tells them that they can't call themselves senior and second-year students. They have to thank their junior that he has earned money and they can get food. It is not fair to all the seniors of the Mountain Sect. Now it is completely different, because everything is run here. But now it has been said at that time. Beak is the only hope of the Mountain Sect. He thinks he is still the hope of the mountain, the sect that can restore Mount Hua Sect to its former glory. He suggests they teach him a lesson. They should find out why the seniors sided with him. Yoonjong enters the room and salutes the seniors they cherish as he tries to take them, taking care of the leaders in their absence. They think the things that happened and shouldn't have happened. And because of that, the reason is Chun Myung apologizes to them for his behavior and asks him what happened during their absence now. Back to the time when Yoon told Chun Myung that Beak had asked to meet him personally. He told him, if he did everything they have done will waste Yoon now worry. Because Chun Myung didn't give him any instructions, and if he told the seniors the details, it feels like he betrayed Chun Myung. Starting from the moment Chun Myung entered Hua Mountain Sect, it was revealed that Chun Myung have found treasures and martial arts books. And they had also reclaimed their business. Not only had he cured Elder, a foolish senior who was shocked to hear all this, meant that the boy had resolved all the headaches the sect had faced. The thing for Mount Hua Sect was martial arts. They thought when the elders realized that the conference was near, they wouldn't be able to pay attention to the third-grade students. They were sure that everything would return to where it belonged to. It was revealed that the third-grade disciples also participated in conferences, and the seniors had to ignore the juniors they wanted to teach. Then, the reason there might be very little age difference between the second and third-year students was because he and Yoon were leaders of the same age, saying they belonged to one of the leading sects, and they had always been chosen as their disciples. But due to the financial crisis, they had accepted all the children, whose family supports them. Because of this age, he doesn't see each other as their competition. Then, thought, the three graders didn't do anything to the sect leader. The second year thought he and Yuen had more chances to rise, because they were around idiots, and they sent the second-year students for training, and the third-year students didn't learn anything from them. He thinks clashes are just human nature. Sect leader suggests Ungum to have faith in students. But Ungum thinks Chun Myung is the main problem, because Beak pays a lot of attentions to him. But sect leader says Beak will settle everything with good. And then, on the next day, the students asked the students to spare them because they were too tired, but Chun Myung cheered them up by saying that they are iron and get stronger just by hitting. Suddenly the senior appeared there and asked the students to get up. They thought the students were relaxing at the time the conference was going on. Close, they gave all the students a punishment to purge the sect. Then, all the juniors are shocked what happened to the seniors. Yoon thinks Chun Myung doesn't remember anything about last night. The seniors have made many rules about walking drinking. It's kind of harassment because they try to bully them by issuing old rules. They also made rules where juniors have to carry their swords even when they bathe, eat, and sleep. They ask Chun Myung to do something, and he suggests them something he says he will do. And after that beat all the seniors, and next all the students rushed to catch him. He was too fast, so they couldn't catch him. Finally they caught him and tried to convince him that he shouldn't fight with seniors. He stopped just because Yoon has done a lot of hard work. But if seniors fight, then Chun Myung can do whatever he wants, which makes him very happy. And then, the Beaks were wondering why there was no reaction from him. They thought he must be angry. But he didn't do anything or he said anything that caused trouble. He wanted to anger the rebels to some extent to use them against him and prevent the rebellion. In the future, but surprisingly he held it very well. He asked about the other third-year students, but he found no problem there, which they said there wasn't any. Then, there is still a lot of time left in the conference that they have to prepare for the half said. Some of the third-year students are not too bad, so they shouldn't punish all of them, because the problem is only Chun Myung at night. Chun Myung quietly went somewhere which he said he would never do. Go to that place again. He has been found twice, but he won't let it happen a third time. But all these troubles happened because of Beak. He wished he could turn things around, but he didn't because of Yoon Jong, because he looks like his older brother. And every time he made trouble, Yoon made a helpless and frustrated face. He felt guilty for causing him to be holding this until the conference was over. He found a suitable place for training, and he felt someone's presence, but no one was there. He thought he can't let his guard down because you follow him everywhere. He tries to hold back when he's with other third-year students. When he sees her alone, he always bothers her with his attempts to talk to her. He thinks she's so pretty that he has never seen someone like her in 80 years his life. And then, Suddenly he appears there, and Chun Myung is surprised to see him. He shouts at her that he must make his presence known before appearing because he scared her to respect him as his senior. Chun Myung asks why he followed her. She asks him about sword techniques. In Where is the Plum Blossom, and Chun Myung replies he doesn't know about it. He asked her to teach the technique. Where is the Plum Blossom? She hopes he will ask her about martial arts who is not from Mountain Sect. She tries to blackmail him by saying he will tell the leader sect, but Chun thinks no one will believe him as a freshman being able to use a sword technique that fills the sky with plum blossoms. And furthermore, he also told him that he is his junior, and how can a junior teach sync? You say he has seen this technique before. But Chun Myung thought, in the battlefield all the elders of Hugh's Mountain Sect have died, and they have not passed on this technique to anyone but him, saying he had seen her before, which meant she was related to the South Edge sect. But she asked him why he had suddenly brought them up. He doubted how someone like her could act like he knew nothing so perfectly. Then he asks her what she means by saying he has seen her before he uses his sword to teach her a lesson. While Chun Myung thinks it's no wonder the second-year students aren't close to him because he is crazy, he attacks Eugene, and he wonders if he really wants to kill her. He asks why a senior fights a junior with a real sword. He replies because he is stronger than him, and once again attacks him, trying to cover the opponent's gap. He asks her if he is crazy because he will die. If he doesn't dodge them, he attacks him again, and he thought that he was not related to the South Edge sect. And then, he would become a villain. If he hit him, that's why he only blocked his attack and didn't try to counterattack. He warned her not to come at him with the intention of killing him. He was shocked to see her pupils dilated, which meant she was drunk. The sword saw as she was ready to kill him with every move, and it seemed he had fallen into a trance. And while in that state, he was trying to find the path of his sword. He thought he should attack him from the side indirectly. Before he thought that Gold Joe was the most talented in terms of swords within Hugh's Mountain Sect, but he couldn't even holding a candle in his beak. Looking at them from the side, Chun Myung thinks he is getting better little by little. But it is still a temporary beak, asks them what they are doing. He uses his sword and attacks Eugene, and then he tries to defend himself. But things can be dangerous because the beak uses Kai's sword. It moves towards you, because this is an important moment for him as a martial artist. Since he experienced while fighting, he can also wake up. Because of that explosion, the leaker thinks he is trying to mess with you when he is in a trance while Chun Myung tries to help him. And then, she asked him because he knew the importance of it. So why did he stop her sword and attacked her? She thought all the second-year students were crazy. Usually the majority were normal except for a few psychos. But it felt the other way around. In Mount Hua Sect, she told the Beak that she was just trying to kill him as he uses Kai's sword. Meek thinks he must be bloodthirsty and uses Kai's sword, but he stands there without a scratch. He asked him to put down his sword because he wants to fight with him not as his senior, but as a martial artist. Chun Myung thinks if he could help her anymore, he could show her truly extraordinary results. Because such a moment of enlightenment might not come to people, even if they waited for her a lifetime, she was lucky to have it in front of her. She thought they could lose someone who had potential to lead Hua Mountain Sect. But now he can beat up the guy who ruined everything, Chun Myung says. They senior and junior get into a fight. They might tarnish his reputation as they try to warn him by saying no one can help him in the mountains. While Chun Myung says no one here can protect Meek from him, saying he has a better idea this time that they won't tell anyone else about what happened here. He says he's just trying to get out of the situation while he trying to persuade him by saying that they should fight each other regardless if they are senior or junior. He agrees with his idea. Half says, in this debate, he is not his senior. And then, he was his junior, and during the fight, he would erase all enmity towards him. Beak thought he was crazy to fight with him, because he had just joined the sect half a year ago. The fight had started, and Beak used the illusion sword technique, where the sword moving changing in an awkward manner. Chun Myung thinks like this happens similar to the Path of Righteousness South Bank. This means he is trying to imitate the illusory sword of the Mountain Sect. He finds it pathetic. Then he says he will teach him a lesson today. But Chun Myung punched him in the face so badly that he fell on the ground. He was surprised how this could happen, because this is the style of sword that he is practicing, and there is no weakness in it. Chun Myung tells him that this is because no one can see the gap before, because the boy he fought was as bad as him. He asked if there was something wrong with his sword technique. Chun Myung replied, currently he is a bit ahead of the others, but his junior will catch up with him soon. He also told him that he has really wanted to beat him fists, but he was still a valued disciple of the sect, so he would beat him in a way that helped him to grow, meaning he would hit him with his sword, and not with his fists. Chun Myung punched him well, and he thought if he hit him 6 times, while he only shouted 5 times, he asked her the question of how he became so strong. And then, while Chun Myung thinks he knows how to face reality. Even after experiencing something ridiculous, he replies that he's not strong. But his beak is too weak. They get angry hearing this and say, he's a sophomore student and a martial artist too. He was the one who would eventually become the leader of the Mountain Sect. And then after that, he called him the frog in the well, the frog that croaked in the small well that no other frog passing by would think of going to. Chun Myung said, because he knew Hua Mountain Sect was in bad shape. But he didn't do anything. What's up with that? He just went for some isolated training with the others, and had fun. A cup of refreshing drink on the way home, and during a conference between the two, he approached. He was busy bullying his junior. He said this doesn't mean working hard, that he does whatever he wants, and then taking the time for some training. It means he should do less from what he wanted. There were second-grade disciples in the Southern Edge sect who were stronger than him, and he considered himself stronger because he got 1 or 2 good moves. He said it wasn't just him. Others could send him lying. Then, flat face on the ground, Beak said he already knew that Chun Myung said it was possible to make him stronger, while Beak lowered his head in front of him and asked him to make him stronger. He would do whatever he said. If he could get stronger, he would not mind studying, even from his junior. But Chun Myung refuses to do it. He says it will be very troublesome. According to him, they don't think about their actions and then come to consist themselves too. He has paid him what he denies. He beats again, because he is weak bad with sword and messes up with her. Now she feels so happy that she is free from indigestion. For 10 years she thought he had beaten her like crazy. But he didn't do it in a way that would hurt her badly. He will be able to wake up after he wakes up sick or not, it's none of his business anymore. He appears in front of him, and he is again scared because he doesn't feel his presence. He says he did it when he was hit in the beak. He asks if he will kill him. And why is he looking at his head? Chun Myung replies. He wonders where he should hit, so he doesn't remember anything. He says he has forgotten everything, and as he forgets everything, so he has to teach him that sword technique. He thinks he has seen how she has beaten him so passionately, and it would be hard to act stupid again. Then he asks why she wants to learn it, but she says she doesn't know, but she just wants to learn sword techniques at any cost. Chun Myung thinks it seems like she didn't just learn it because the plum blossoms are pretty. There must be some other reason. She already knows that this technique no longer exists in Hua Mountain Sect. He also told the technique when to return immediately after preparation. And then, a plum blossom in front of her, she thought this was a sword technique that she spent most of her time practicing repeatedly. But the method was different from hers. She asked if this was a sword. It was a girl, she said. To find out what she didn't know was her role. Unless he reaches a certain STR, he won't be able to learn it. He thinks she finds him boring, but he is actually smart. He asks if she tell anyone else about what happened today, then she won't teach him. He leaves, giving her an order to throw away the beak to his room because if they leave him there, he will get a stiff neck. After Chun Myung left, he thinks about his father and says he will definitely learn that technique, and one day he wants to return to Mountain Sect and apologize for his father. He thinks, as his father had told him, that there was no better place than the Mountain Sect. And when Chun Myung comes back, he sees Jo-gul and Yoon waiting for him. He asks them why they are up at this hour. They tell him senior half has disappeared and grand senior has come to White Plum Hall, and he tells them he with the first half, they thought he didn't. Then, beating him. Even though he wasn't always in the right state of mind, he wouldn't do something crazy like beating up a scene, but he made them shocked by saying he didn't just beat him, he beat him angrily, gripping his collar. When he disrespected his senior by beats him up, but Chun reassures him saying he has taken care of it, so it won't have any repercussions. Jo-gul's goal says he has to restrain himself in his actions. There are basic limits humans have to observe. He informs that Beats cannot speak, but he also tells them that Beak asked him to make him stronger, and they asked him whether he agreed or not. He replied that he just beat him because he didn't feel very calm, so he just beat him until he was satisfied. They were still surprised that he tamed the senior. And then, next morning, all the seniors disappear, because they every day come to this time and torment the juniors. Joe thinks everything seems to be settled now. This means Chun Myung really won against Senior Beak Chun. Yoon thinks Chun Myung should fight the Southern Edge sect on the spot B, because he was stronger than, and he not only defeated Beak Chun, but also defeated him one-sidedly. While Joe's aim was thinking if they want to revive the Mountain Sect, then they shouldn't depend on Chun Myung and become stronger too. Chun Myung probably will become the hero who will change the mountain sector. He might become the dictator to rule over the small mountain at the same time. He follows Chun Myung again, teaches him the sword, while he tells him to go and ask for it. But he knows he has no experience in it. Then, half thought this was ridiculous that he beat her so badly, but left no external victory. He thought he would prove his worth. This time today was the day that the Southern Edge sect would arrive. Ungum informed the sect leader about the preparations, and that there would be no matter. The sect leader said there will be no embarrassment compared to the last time when there was no food and the practice site was run. Now he thanks Chung Myung for this, because it's not just about the food. It's about what he brought back. The dignity of the mountain sect Hua, Purple thought. They weren't the only ones getting better, as there were times when he thought the cult leader believed that they were already perfect. But humans were meant to strive for improvement until the day they died. The sect leader said that if Mount Hua Sect didn't reject him, he wouldn't become sect leader, and if his senior brother didn't leave the sect, he would spend his days reading the Tao and scriptures, while Ungum said those people left because they weren't fit to be leaders. The sect leader is worried about the second-grade disciple and whether they will be able to win against the purple. The Southern Tip Sect said that the third-grade disciple also trains very hard. The sect leader said the mountain action he and the South End Sect Conference is basically the basis for exchange. No, it mattered whether they won or lost. What mattered was who was able to use this exchange to improve even more. The sect leader thought, if there was a difference between now and the past, it was that they possessed the 7 Plum Blossom Sword technique records. But perhaps barely, maybe to restore the old glory of the Mount, Jong, who is a second-grade disciple of the Southern Edge sect, asked, wondering whether the Mount Act was part of the 10 great sects in the past. Because according to them it is very small and shabby, and he said Mount Hua Sect was very strong in the past, so they developed the village to a certain extent. Zhang said they should not come to such a place whose level is solo, while Li Sun Beek wanted to retaliate grudge against him. Compared to the joy he had when he came here last time now, it reminded him of one person. And when he saw Mount Diasek, they really walked into the tiger's den. Now they reached the Taoist Hall, and they don't like the place of the Taoist Hall. Generally try to be located away from the world to be closer to nature, so that the disciples know themselves in peace and people can't easily approach them. Then, Zhang said, this was a place where one had to go through so much to get to that place. It should at least be pleasant, but they would feed them vegetables and put them in the broken pavilion to sleep. They didn't expect any good food from them because the beggars sect had an inn that better than them. And then, they were worried that the people from the U.S. Mountain Sect would lower their reputation with them. Li tried to convince them by saying they shouldn't let their guard down, while Zhang said if they let their guard down a bit, nothing would change. Since they were a mountain sect, he seemed to be assuming an elder from the Southern Edge sect asked them, did they have forgotten what happened with the Yunha Merchants Guild? They were humiliated because the martial arts sect was almost finished, and the sect leader was enraged for seemingly revealing that the sect leader wanted to terminate their relationship with the sect's mount through the conference. This was their aim, not just to defeat the mountain sect. Then he was at the conference this time, but also trampled on their spirits. Finally, they reached the sect, and were shocked to see the gate was in good condition. They knew that Yuna Merchant Guild had invested in it, but it hadn't even been that long ago, he said. Even if they built back their main gate, it doesn't change who they really are. Hyun Sang welcomes them and introduces himself and asks about the cult leader, and he tells them he's inside now, and he guesses by their attitude that they are bent on ruining. And Hyun Sang informed them that they have prepared a welcome banquet for all Southern Edge disciples. And after that, Sima thought they were considering the conference as a game event in a meal. He said he wanted to meet the sect leader first since they had rebuilt the main gate. But the inside of this place must be in bad condition. But he again faced disappointment because of the condition. The building is much better than before. He says they have to and uses some sort of heist, while Hyun says he can't call them thieves. Suddenly Chun Myung screams at him, just die! Sima gets angry hearing this, while Joe purposely asks Chun Myung how can he rest when he hasn't even run that much. He tells him to stop talking nonsense and start running properly. He is a student who tarnished the reputation of Southern Edge sect as well. He hasn't learned any manners, Chun Myung said. He couldn't hear him because he was far away and called him closer. He thought if it was true he flew up and vomited blood during the fight with Lee. Then he's not strong in martial arts. He says he's like his senior so he shouldn't order it, Chun Myung replies as he mentioned. So he's right. He asked him to convey his message to the elder who's right beside him, that he should order the sect leader them politely. Chun Myung thought he had tripped over his words by leading the conversation without saying much. His sect leader, but Chun Myung's rudeness is not the same as his. For strength according to him to be brute without strength is brute but not rude. When he does, because he has power, Chun Myung recognized it. Lee among them, he thought he wanted to let things go peacefully. But they wanted to turn everything around. From the beginning, he tried to convince the senior brothers that the moment they lost to them, he would kill them all. He didn't care if they lost somewhere else or if they went somewhere and got beaten up. But he didn't want to see them lose to Southern Edge Sect. Only a child who doesn't know how big the world is will definitely act recklessly, and they will punish him later. They say the disciples of Mount Hua are the ones who choose to fight first. But truth is on the side of those who have power in the world. Late martial artists spoke with their swords, no matter how good the talk was, would not change a single thing. They thought the Southern Tip Sect and Mountain Conference would be very interesting this time. He was surprised to see the sect leader, as he looked relaxed compared to the previous year. But they can't surpass the South Bank Sect. He taunts them by referring that he doesn't like Plum Blossom, because it has a deep fragrance which spoils harmony. Hien thinks he is referring to the time when Hua Mountain Sect only chased the prophets and refused to cooperate with the Deep South Sect. Then, the development of the South Bank Sect, let alone the relationship between the two, and to make broken porcelain required a lot of work. The sect leader felt insulted. They wanted to officially put the Hua Mountain Sect under their feet. He also revealed that conferences were always held in the Mountain Sect and they never complained about it. Moreover, they always carried treasures to support them at all times. While the real reason was that they wanted to ridicule them by coming here in person to see how far they have fallen and to show South Edge Sect victory over Mountain Sector. He asked sect leader to say that they no longer want this conference to go on. Sect leader asked him, will South Edge Sect be closed? All ties with other sects. Sect leader main concern is the children. Because according to him the conference would become very dangerous, Ungum said. If they gave up on the match, out of fear even before the fight itself, then shame would haunt the children for the rest of their lives. Ungum said, they should believe in their students who had worked so hard. They were able to bring good news that Chung Myung was training with the disciples and giving them the instructions of the disciples of the Southern Edge Sect, served with a sumptuous meal which they thought the people of the Hua Mountain Sect to be very arrogant. But in the end, what matters most is martial arts. As a sect without martial arts is just an empty shell. They want to make the Southern Edge Sect the best sect in the world, of Jin warned them, saying, if they fail to show what a true disciple of the Southern Edge Sect is like, he was about to teach them a lesson before the elder did. Sama entered the room and said that everything he wanted to say had been said by the genie. On his behalf, he told them to make such a triumph. The people of the Hua Mountain Sect didn't even dare to mention the South Bank Sect's name, also did not hesitate to break the legs and arms of the students. And he also told her to be careful about Chun Ma because she dared to talk to him. Laying down while Chun Myung appears there and tells them that his nerves are not made of steel, but they are too weak-minded. He says they needn't be nervous, as they have done everything they can do, and he acknowledges the hard work they have put it on Joe, thinking as long as they have Chun, the third-year students will continue to get stronger. And then, Chun Myung went for training, and he thought no one else was there. He said, if he shows up again, he will break his head, tie him up with a rope, and throw him over the cliff. He feels someone's presence there. But this time it's different, which meaning it's not him. There are two people who meet deep in mountains at dawn. He goes to them and tries to see them. First stealth is Beak. He and the other guy is Genie. It is revealed that they both are brothers. He calls him by name Original. And then, while Beak Chun forbade him to call him by that name, he said he must not give up the name given to him by his parents. Chun Myung. My son was surprised to know that his name is Jin Dongryang. And they're both brothers. One of them is Jumryang, and the other one is Dongryang. He really wants to see their father so he can ask him what he think. And then, when he named the money, that Beak Chun ran away from his house and entered Hua Mountain Sect to defeat him. And then he thought Jin was pretending to be gentle and hiding behind smiles. But even that smile was disgusting, because it came from his rotten heart. Jin said, if he begs on the floor, then he can still accept him in the South Bank Sect. Beak said his goal is to help Hua Mountain Sect surpass South Bank Sect, so he must not say that in front of him, according to half Jin must enter in South Bank Sect and defeat him. And then, so he might have the slightest chance of achieving it, Chun Myung overhears all their conversation. And understanding the whole story, Chun realizes after entering Mount Hua Sect that happiness is not about being dressed nicely or having delicious and sumptuous food. Life is also the actions of Mount Hua, is a place that gives him purpose, and it is a place that embraces him, with compassion. The genie says he has made a sad choice. He will live his whole life humiliated as a third-class warrior, and he will only watch him become the sect leader of the South End. And after that, from his pitiful position, he said after today, neither he nor the sect mountain would be able to show their faces at Young-ho met Chun, promising himself that one day he would become the sect leader and restore his glory. Then Chun Myung appears there, and Beek is surprised to see him. As he doesn't feel his presence, he calls him by his real name and admires him, that he has good thoughts about Mountain Sect as well. He has made a good choice by leaving South Edge Sect. Chun Myung say, this is the time to smash their pseudo-face. And then, early in the morning, the sect leader advised the students that there was no need to be rigid. They just needed to use this Mount Hua and Southern Edge Conference as their stepping stone. No matter what the result, they were all still proud. The disciples of the Mountain Sect, he watched over all of them. The students gathered in the hall. There were people who had come here to watch the Hua Mountain and Southern Edge Conference, and they demanded that those people in quite luxurious clothes enter. And the sect leader knew some of them. This meant that they were the 10 leaders of the Shangxi Merchant Association and some other big figures in the local area. But why did they want to watch the Mountain and Southern Edge Conference? And this was a hoax, some people. But he denied the accusation and saying, this is not their trick. Mr. H. Wang brought them here because he thought things wouldn't be as fun without an audience at an event like this. He thought of the time when Chun Myung sent him a letter and asked him to bring famous and influential people as audience. Announced the start of the conference. The first participant is half, and Jin, the result of the whole event can be decided by a match. And then, the audience was impressed by his performance, and he looked quite confident as the young hero of a story. Both of them looked very much alike. Jin was surprised to see the Beak using Crouching Tiger as a sword. He was like Crouching Tiger that made a surprise attack that allowed Technique 1 to run at incredible speed, and launched consecutive attacks. The sect leader also wondered when he reached that level. But he hadn't even landed a single attack, half attacking him again and again, but he couldn't even claw at him, like he was looking at the precipice towering high in the sky, the cliff he didn't dare to climb. He again attacked him, but failed. Jin said he had enough fun to today attacked him, and knocked him to the ground, and said no matter how many martial arts the Mountain Sect had, he learned he would not be able to touch even a hair. He attacked him again and broke his sword. He would not be able to cut the hems of his clothes. Jin said, no. Maybe the martial arts of Mount Hua Sect can be compared with the martial arts of Southern Edge Sect. Not even in 100, not 1,000 years it will always be the same. Other disciples came to ask for Beek's help, but he didn't realize they were telling him that this was just a match, and he didn't need to injure the opponent so badly. During the fight, they took the Beak to the treatment hall. Next is Seohan from South End Sect. The people in the audience said Jin Jumryang's achievements far exceeded their expectations. He deserves to wield the title of swordsman and most talented piece. Also, South End Sect deserves to be called the best sect in Shanxi for having a disciple like him. While Master H. Wang wonders why Chun Myung told him to bring people here, it means he has something for him. Sleeve. If this continues, Hua Mountain Sect will not be able to regain its former reputation. Chun Myung reveals that he never expected that they would win the conference, but he just wants to be able to save, at least some of their pride. He believes that all the students of the class 2 will lose, and only one person can win, but he doesn't participate. 9 tributes suffer consecutive defeats from them. Hyung suggests the sect leader stop all this because at this rate the third-year students will be brutally destroyed. Also now the third-year competition will begin. Chun Myung angrily jumps on the ground. He asks the students to hurry up and come on the ground. Jin tells his junior to go and help him to understand his place. He tells Chun Myung that he will smash his arrogant mouth. Chun Myung jumps and punches him in the face. Next he moved so fast that Sami the Southern Edge Elder missed his move. He took his sword and ordered Sion to get up. He hadn't even used his inner energy yet. The other disciples from Southern Edge shouted from their seats that he hit him in the middle of the conversation. Xian wakes up slowly, but his face is swollen from one side. Suddenly blood starts flowing from his nose. Chun Myung gets worried and thinks Xian is dead. It will be the second murder in his second life. Also, he bled a lot just from the punch. He asked him if they should give him treatment, but he was also worried because he was seeing something like this for the first time. But he put pieces of clothing in his nostrils, meaning he wanted to continue the fight. And then, Chung Myung feels proud of him. Even though he is from the South Bank sector, he yells at him he will beat him until he comes down and apologizes. Chung Myung feels a bit regretful, but his useless thoughts were completely lost. He called out to him, so that he could show him how it feels like not to be able to reach your opponent. Jin called him from behind and exhorted. He did not underestimate his opponent. And yet he said, Chung Myung's sword couldn't even scratch him and hit him, but again was hit by Chun and fell to the ground. Chung Myung said he didn't even reach it. The chief financial officer was so surprised that he thought he was dreaming because Chung Myung was really new. Just fighting against a third-year disciple of the Southern Edge sect, the sect leader was also astonished. He even saw your brother. And then, after that, the sect leader says this is nonsense. He should lose finances. The leader wonders, did one of them fight well? And they tell him to lose. Hyung asks him, how long has it been since Chung Myung joined the Mountain Sect? Purplum replied that it had been less than 6 months. The sect leader thought he was just a lucky star that fell into the Mountain Sect. But that kid's martial arts talent must be way beyond what he just showed them. He thought he was a genius. Moreover, this wasn't just on at the rate of regaining their dignity. Perhaps they had found someone who could lead Mount Sect for the next 100 years. And the people present were also wondering why Hua Mountain Sect had such a talented person. And while every time he thought that he couldn't witness the power of martial arts, last time it was because he wasn't aware at that moment he expected all of this, and this is why he called him to bring people over, but they only have one win. If the third-year students others lose, then they can conclude that Chun is amazing. Will Hua Mountain Sect counterattack start? Chung Myung feels so refreshed, while Joe and Yoon aim wonders. How can he say that, after beating up someone like that, all the other students praise Chung Myung for what he has done? And then it's Yoon Jong's turn. He thought Chung Myung did what he should also need to keep the atmosphere. This time Chung Myung told him to leave quickly. He also suggested him to go and punch his opponent when he saw Yoon Jong's face walking to the ground and everyone's eyes are filled with hope. Chung Myung calls him from behind that he will kill him. If he loses, the wind has started to blow towards Mount Hua Sect. He introduces himself as a third-grade disciple of Great Mountain Sect and asks for a duel with Jin Sect's order. South Bank to go there and crush Yoon Jong. He thought Chung Myung was stronger than he thought, but it won't be the same for the others. Yoon Jong thought it was less than 2 years since last time. He faced him and lost badly. Result today would probably be the same. If Chung Myung hasn't reached them, their fight has already started. Yoon Jong's pose is quick and simple attack with predictable sword path. He is fast, and his attack is heavy. Jin can't see his moves. He gets angry, and tells him not to be proud, just because of him blocked a few of his attacks, and once again attacked him. But Yoon Jong knew he must not hesitate one bit. He punched him with all his strength, and as a result Gong Jin's sword broke into pieces, and he fell to the ground. And then, it was a good match for Zhou's goal indeed. All Hua Mountain disciples shouted happily. The sect leader became unconscious. Happily, all the disciples praised him now. He asked Zhou to go there and also encouraged him that he wouldn't be able to lost. Even if he wanted Chung Myung to tell Yoon Jong that learning martial arts was like building a tower, how tall it could depend on how strong the foundation was. And the disciples of the Southern Edge, the sect had already started building the second and third tier before the first was even finished. And they put off strengthening their tower, and now they have to do it, while they were building it. Chung Myung had focused on Roots Zhou's aim moves. They were also different from before. Then, he concentrated on being able to put all of his strength into one strike, and he had defeated his opponent. Hugh's Mountain Sect had won 4 times in a row, according to Yoon Jong. Except for him, Zhou Gul and him, all 7 other disciples were around the same level. This meant they would continue their winning streak, and the results of the upcoming matches would not be any different. In other words, the Mountain Sect would win against the South Bank Sect. They continued to win over the third-year disciples. Doing so, they had won all 10 consecutive matches, 10 consecutive wins. Coming in after 10 consecutive losses, but they lost 10 in wins. And 10 times, which is a draw, missing one moment of what he's going to do, everyone is watching Chung Myung, as if they were mesmerized by his lines. That's the back they'll see time and time again. From then on, he's the one who can lead Hua Mountain Sect. The sect leader couldn't believe that this day had come, because he never expected this day would come in his life. Ruining the reputation of the South Bank Sect, Jin thinks of a draw with the Mountain Sect of the South Bank Sect's perfect victory has now been dipped into a pile of dung. Meanwhile, Chung Myung pulls everyone towards him, and he wants to say something to everyone. He asks his wings to decide. Since he has seen all who won this competition, Mr. Huang says it is very difficult for them to come to a conclusion. But they will feel like this is not finished yet. If they let it be a draw, Chun Myung says he has a suggestion whereby they can decide easily about the winner since both of them have won 10 matches. They will take out the losers and let those who fight each other, but they all were sophomores in the South Bank Sect and a third-grade disciple in the Mountain Sect. He suggested they have a team match where the winner of the sparring could stay on the field to fight the opponent. Next side with the last person standing wins. Everyone was shocked by his suggestion. Sima asked him who gave him the right to represent the Hua Mountain Sect, and give suggestions. He replied to ask his sect leader directly. And then, he was also present here. The people present liked his suggestion, as they would be able to see how the third years would fight against the sophomores of the Ungum. The South Bank Sect asked the sect leader to trust Chun Myung, as he must have something in his mind. In his mind, the sect leader announces that the Hua Mountain Sect has accepted Sema's suggestion, as well as Yoon Jong's suggestion to drag Chun Myung out, and yells at him about how they can win against the second-year students. And then, they have Jin Jumryong, who is the most talented swordsman, in shock. Jin stepped in because whether they had the foundation or not, Jin Jumryong was on a whole different level. They just want to win. It doesn't matter if there are 10 or 20 opponents, she will face them all. Sima orders everywhere to go first, while Chun Myung says he doesn't need a damn plan. He is a plan, he says, no matter how strong the Mountain Sect is already got. No one would admit that, unless it was proven. They needed to let all the Youngs know about the fact that the Mountain Sect he was no longer the same. To say that a third-grade disciple of the Mountain Sect, he destroyed all the second-grade disciples of Southern Edge alone. He would be the legend that would overturn the entire Zhang. He asked for a duel, and Yubik accepted, as if he were a swordsman who had stepped onto the battlefield. And then, today was the day he would make the legend Yub appear with the Plum Blossom Sword technique, and the sect leader wondered. When the South End Sect had that kind of sword technique, he attacked Chung Myung, but he stopped his sword technique. He couldn't understand its strength, because he didn't use sword technique. And then swinging his sword, there was no opening for him to use the 12 moves Snowflower sword technique. Chun Myung attacked him with his sword and he fell to the ground after defeating him. Chun Myung called out to the next student, while Sema was shocked as he used a basic sword technique to suppress your beak. It not something I am capable of. Who does he think? He has to stop him, because if he continues to grow at this rate, he will overshadow the sect of the South Bank one day. He orders him to leave. Then, after that next, advising him not to let him get an easy win, dragging the match out and wasting his strength as much as possible. He says he doesn't underestimate his opponent. Their fight has started, but Seohan's condition is the same as yours. And after that he was defeated by Chun Myung, and also he summoned his next opponent. He had defeated the second-year student Jong Hen with just one move. Chun Myung thought he would not be satisfied with them just losing. He wanted to leave a stigma on them, which was not will disappear as long as the sect is in the world. He shouts to bring out the next one, now showing the sword technique petal fall. He moves so fast that the opponent can't see his movement. And then, he again defeats the opponent, with just one move. Yoonjong says Joe aim not to take his hands away from him. This is a sword technique from Mount Hua Sect that he used. They asked Chun Myung to show them more sword techniques. He has defeated 6 people. They thought, at this rate, they would all lose by a third of the students. And the other students were now scared of him and didn't want to go. So they asked Big Brother Jin to go there. He decided to go there and rush towards the ground. But Sima orders him to stop and asks Manjok to leave out there and asks Jin to follow him. She asks if he thinks they will all fight him. Jin replies he is a monster, while he thinks he is too young for that. But he can become a monster if they let him. And he would. Hindering the future of Southern Edge Sect, he ordered Jin to kill Chun Myung, as he thought they only needed to get rid of him before he could fulfill his potential. And then, he pushes him saying, even though Chun Myung is a monster, but he can still beat him, or if he can't kill him, then cut off his arm or something. Jin promise him that he will stop Chun Myung at any cost. While Chun Myung beats 8 people against him, the 9th appeared, but he confessed that he was not strong enough to fight with her. But he could not see being humiliated. And then, while Chun Myung likes the thought that his opponent is Lee, Chun Myung thinks he is the only man in the South Edge Sect that he doesn't hate. In that case, he has to give him a chance. And Lee moves forward, and Chun Myung shows him the level of knowledge, the sword that had been chased by the South End Sect during his era. Suddenly Lee finds around him. It's dark, he wonders where did he go. Chun has shown him fusion of swords and defeats him too now. There's only one left, he calls Jim. Geo Uriang to go there. Something has never happened like this before, in where the Hua Mountain Sect had destroyed the South Bank Sect. Just like today in official arrangements, even in the era of Plum Blossoms, the Hua Mountain Sect had a good reputation. But today's event was unprecedented. The cult leader forbade Hyung to say anything and kept watching, because he felt he would show something new again. Jin thought people always proposed to him with great hope. But a boy has changed. All of that. Being concerned and scared for only half a day, Chung Myung doesn't feel proud, because he thinks he just beat up someone who's weaker than him. And then, another one, he tries to piss her off by saying the Southern Tip Sect is better than the Hua Mountain Sect. The Mountain Sect, he thought, if they had stolen, then their martial arts should do a good job of stealing it, because he would show them what kind of technique it really was. What he was about to do now couldn't be done by a third-grade disciple of the Mountain Sect. Except for the Plum Blossom Sword, Chung Myung and the others came from behind, and he wanted to see this. He wanted to cheer him up close the fight. They started, and they were too fast that people couldn't catch up with them. It was really something unbelievable. Jin had create infinite snowflakes with 12 moves. Snowflake's technique, stunning beauty and fatal attacks are hidden inside. Chun Myung Mayan thought it looked different, but they had done a great job of copying it now to 24 moves. Plum Blossom Sword Technique. Jin said a technique that symbolized Hua Mountain Sect, now a part of the Southern Edge Sect. The reason why they came up with this technique was to let the world know that Southern Edge Sect was always better than Mountain Sect. Also, he would cut down his last hope. Chun Myung says he is just obsessed with South Bank Sect. Also, Mountain Sword Technique is faster and sharper and nicer. While Jin wants to kill him with this sword technique, he starts making flowers around him and says his razor-like snowflower will swallow him up, as well as the sun. He made a snowflake that devoured the sky that was beyond expectation of beak. He thought he could never surpass that which he thought was similar to the technique that made plum blossoms. But it's different with Chun Myung. But Chun Myung Maya thinks of it as a shell with nothing inside. She uses the 7 Plum Blossom Sword Technique that hasn't mastered the Plum Blossom Technique. Not the only technique that can make the flower bloom like in the end. Hua Mountain Sect's sword techniques were able to make flowers like flowers not bloom in dense forest. They could also blossom on a single tree growing on a steep cliff. They bloom as long as the tree didn't succumb to the wind. Jin was shocked to see this, because he heard that Mountain Sect couldn't again make plum blossom. That's why people say that the Sect Mountain won't be able to rise again. The snowflower withered because it's just an illusion. Chun Myung has destroyed the Jin. The snowflower devours the sky. It's as perfect, a 12-move snowflower sword technique that can be performed in a complete form that surpasses perfection. And then, Chun Myung said, they can't disappear from the Mount Hua Sect, because in the end the world will continue to be born again and again forever, the way of Taoism that the predecessors of the Mount Hua Sect tried to achieve, is in the flower. It is this flower that is lost to the Mountain Sect, and what they would eventually achieve. He pointed out the plum blossoms pruning. The slashes would become pillars, and form walls that would gather, and become dust that would be carried by the whirling winds, and become a violent whirlwind. Later, he was astonished to see this. He wondered why his sword techniques weren't as splendid, and his headband was torn to pieces. And the most talented people from Shaanxi had been defeated by a third-grade disciple of the Hua Mountain Sect. This time the Mountain Sect, and the Southern Tip Sect conference won by the Mountain Sect. All the disciples and elders shouted with joy as they had made a great victory by making 10 consecutive wins. This was their first victory in the history of the Hua Mountain Sect, and the South Bank Conference Chun Myung thought he was a little exaggerated, because he had used the 7 Plum Blossom Swords to the extreme and managed to defeat Jin Jumrium, but it seemed that his internal injuries would last for a while. However, he has done quite well for now. Purplum announces their victory, and Hua Mountain Sect might change after today's event. Everyone run towards Chun Myung to applaud him. Congrats, sect leader, and say this, victory does not mean that Mount Hua Sect has surpassed the South Bank Sect. Nothing has changed, due to some mere fights between the second and third-year disciples. Chun Myung approaches the sect leader and pays his respects to the elders of the Southern Edge Sect. While sect leader thinks he is very polite, she tells him that they will meet often from now on. While Sema reveals that they will be back, Chun Myung thinks he will be back without the rest of the sect. While sect leader thanks him for his hard work, People in between audience wants to talk to the sect leader about a deal, while the finance leader brings them with him again, and he comes to thank him for the teachings. When he told him not to let others choose the path he wants to take, Yoonjung tells him that the sect leader is looking for him, and he wanted to see her alone. Then, Chun Myung knew this time had to come. He was nervous about what excuse he should use, and the sect leader asked him to follow him. He thought this was the second time he looked behind the sect leader like this. First was when he touched the secret storage door, and then it was his back sad that the person headed for the second drop. But today his back seems a little more comfortable. The sect leader took him to the highest peak of Mount Hua, and Chun Myung said it was very high. Then the sect leader didn't say anything but thanks. He said he didn't thank him as sect leader. But as an ordinary person, Hyun Jang, he asked, "How did he make plum blossoms with 7 plum blossom swords?" He replied, "That happened naturally." Naturally, the sect leader asks him, "What does Hua Mountain Sect mean to him?" And Chun Myung replies, "Action is just a mountain sect." The sect leader promised him that he and Hua Mountain Sect will protect him from everything he needs. While Chun Myung replies that he won't protect him, he will travel with him. All the students eat, enjoying their moment of victory, still can't believe that they have won the conference. While Joe's aim is still in the luster of the sword technique, it's just a fantasy to him. They all believe that they are about to use a sword technique, whereas Chun Myung rushes at them and screams at them about how they can brag to each other. After performing so easily, did they think winning the conference would be the end of things? They needn't be too happy or too sad? This was just one fight, they would be more from now on. He asked them to go out and start training now, and then he appeared there and asked her to go with him for a while, because he wanted to say something to Chun Myung. Asked him why he took her to a dark place, and if she was going to kill him, he said he wanted to be stronger. She asked him to teach second-year students, including him. However, Chun Myung says he has wasted his time teaching third graders, and he doesn't want to teach them. And he wonders why he did that. Because what can he get from third graders? But not from graders too. Chun Myung said he had trained the third graders strictly, especially crawling all the time, which made things easy then. But he wouldn't be able to teach them. If he treated them, his seniors thought. He didn't say this was impossible. He just saying that there are various problems, agreed that Chun Myung is no longer his junior, nor is anyone among Hua Mountain. And then, the second-year students would try to use their ranks against him. He swore that upon him all the third-year students were shocked to see the second-year students in the hall. They asked Chun Myung, why are the seniors standing in front of White Plum Hall? Under Chun Myung told them that from now on, everyone will be equal. During the training, he announced that the seniors have joined them voluntarily, and he is the instructor of the Mountain Sect, will now have screams and wails just for 3 months and 10 to next day, he says. He also wants to learn from him. Chun Myung says he learned from him. He will not spare him even if he cries for help. Plum Blossom, because it is only part of the process, their goal should be the compilation of techniques that make Plum Blossom. Chun Myung gives them instructions that if they fail to hold this for long 2 hours, they will die at his hands. Yet Ungam is watching all this from a cliff, and thinks he has to work hard to keep up with the increasingly powerful Mount Hua Sect. But is it too greedy to ask Chun Myung to teach him too? Chun Myung thinks it is important for him who uses his past as a verbal to make better decisions in the present and create a better future. He needs to move forward and follow the process. He must want to create a place they can trust. And then, when the time came, he would continue to grow stronger and would surpass the Heavenly Demon. The spring day that caused the plum blossoms on Mount Hua was about to end. Slowly and indifferently, a man appeared at the door of Hua Mountain Sect. He thought the sect Mount Hua he knows is not that clean. He hopes his father's decision is not wrong. He said he wants to meet the sect leader. He introduces himself as Soing, and he is from an external sect affiliated with Mount Hua Sect. And then, he wants to meet the leader of the sect because of an emergency. He reveals that his sect is in trouble, and his father has sent him here for help. He says he wants to take Chun Myung with him. He has to help them if they don't get help. They have to take down their academy board. Sect leader says they want to discuss something, so he has to wait outside. Sect leader orders Yoon Jong to take Sohin to Chiang Mai. And while Sohin thinks the vibe he gets from her is on a completely different level from her, like there is a quite big lake inside him. Yoon Jong took him to the place where Chun Myung is called Plum Blossom. The people of the cave come here to practice in peace, with no one else around, or to gain Yoon's enlightenment. Jung called Chun Myung and he appeared there. Looking at the person who just came out, based on the way he spoke, Wee So Hang thought that person wasn't the sacred dragon of Mount Hua. But there's something unusual about him besides his gruff demeanor. The balance between his body and facial muscles made him quite handsome. While waving his hand, Chung Myung asked if today's closed practice is over, but Jong Yoon said no, because there are still about 3 days left. Jong Yoon then informs that the current sect leader is looking for Chung Myung. Chung Myung also believes that the head of the sect must feel sorry for him. So he asks Jong Yoon to remove him from the closed practice. But Jong Yoon answered, that's not it. He felt something was going on. Hearing that made Chung Myung curious. After that, Chung Myung realized there was someone other than Jong Yoon and asked who he was. Jong Yoon also answered that he was Wee So Hang from the Hua Shadow Sect. Chung Myung so did not expect. That Hua Shadow Sect must have been one of Hua Mountain's outer sects in the past. Chung Myung thought everything had been closed, so he didn't think there were any survivors. Seeing Chung Myung's reaction, Jong Yoon asked if he knew them, and Chung Myung replied that he didn't recognize them at all. Since there's nothing else to talk about, Jong Yoon invites to go hear the details from the sect leader now. Chung Myung complied and started walking first. He then told them that if they didn't catch up, he would walk alone. Chung Myung is so happy because finally he can eat meat. Seeing Chung Myung, Wee So Hang thinks that Chung Myung doesn't look like a Taoist from Mount Hua Sect, especially with his behavior. He is like a thug spitting on the ground in a dark alley. But when Wee So Hang thought that, Jong Yoon asked Wee So Hang to follow Chung Myung. Wee So Hang was confused because their purpose here was to meet the sacred dragon of Mount Hua. Jong Yoon became confused. He then said that he didn't know who the sacred dragon of Mount Hua was, but the person they had just met was the one they were looking for. Hearing that made Wee So Hang surprised and amazed. He also asked if the person just now was Chung Myung. To answer that question, Jong Yoon nodded his head. Wee So Hang's imagination was shattered. Jong Yoon then warned that it was too early to be stunned, because there were still many more surprises waiting for him. Hearing the story from the sect head made Chung Myung pound the table. He was irritated that not only were the outer disciples of the Wudang sect attacking them, but they had even asked the Taoist of their main sect for help. After being confirmed by the sect head, with a very irritated face, he said that those bastards had the audacity to do it. Chung Myung then asked the sect leader not to worry, as he will go and make sure this matter is resolved. Suspiciously, Jong Yoon asked how Chung Myung would do it. The raging Chung Myung says that he will attack there and crush the heads of all the bastards from the Academy Road. Seeing Chung Myung and Jong Yoon's commotion, the sect leader couldn't help but smile. He was worried whether it would be okay for them to send Chung Myung there. Eun-gum agrees that he feels they should consider that. When Chung Myung says that it's only natural to protect people who pay protection fees to him, Hyun Young looks like he agrees. Because of that, Chung Myung said if they don't do that, then no one will pay them. Jong Yoon scolded Chung Myung and told him not to call the money a protection fee, but call it funds or something like that. Chung Myung, who was still not finished, then said that they were the ones who asked to fight, so they had to respond properly. Because of that, Chung Myung once again asked the sect leader to leave this matter to him. The head of the sect leader became very sick. After taking a deep breath, the head of the sect decided that Chung Myung would go with a few others. Apart from that, they have to find out more about what happened, as there are some details that bother him. So the sect leader orders Chung Myung to leave tomorrow or the day after. Chung Myung gets excited. He was happy as long as he could see the faces of those Wudang bastards. The head of the sect gets tired and says that he will decide who Chung Myung will go with. As the talk was over, the head of the sect asked Jong Yoon to prepare accommodation for Wee So Hang. Besides that, Wee So Hang must be hungry. So the sect head also asked him to get some food. Chung Myung, Jong Yoon, and Wee So Hang finally left the room. Before Chung Myung left, the sect leader called out to him. He then asked if the closed practice helped Chung Myung get stronger. Chung Myung smiled and said that Wudang's punching bag would give him the answer. This time finally Chung Myung really go. After Chung Myung leaves, the head of the sect calls Hyung Song and says that he might be overthinking everything. But he was unsettled by the sudden appearance of the Wudang outer sect in Nanying, where for a long time there had been no trouble. Because of that, the sect head couldn't believe that it was just a coincidence that they had a fight with Mount Hua. Not understanding the head of the sect, Hyung Sang asks the head of the sect what he's trying to say. The head of the sect says that he doesn't know if this is the right choice for them to send Chung Myung there. He was afraid that was what they were after, but Hyung Sang doesn't agree with that. He couldn't believe that they would attack any of the outer sects of Mount Hua just to make Chung Myung come. Besides, Hyungsang doesn't understand what the Wudang sect will gain from fighting Mount Hua, because there isn't much to gain from the small land of Nanying in the first place. After the last meeting of Hua in the southern tip, Chung Myung has become much more famous now. People even say now that Chung Myung is one of the few candidates who will become the strongest youth generation. That was what the sect head was worried about. Chung Myung's calling, the sacred dragon of Mount Hua, is exaggerated and conspicuous. The sect head didn't know if the Wudang sect was interested in taking over a small piece of land, but since they were both Taoist sects, they wouldn't tolerate Mount Hua sect being more famous than them. Hearing that, Ungum asks what they should do about it. He then asks if the head of the sect knows the nicknames that other students give to Chung Myung. Out of curiosity, the sect head asked what it was. Ungum answered, Mount Hua Mad Dog. Hearing that made the sect head dumbfounded. Unam cleared his throat and thought that Mad Dog sounded a little too insulting, so he suggested choosing a vicious dog instead. The sect head thought he still called him a dog, and was confused why they didn't just use another word. Ungum then tells the sect head that, as he knows their disciple has worked really hard in the past few years, not only the Wudang sect or the Shaolin would be able to look down on them now, but among the disciples on Mount Hua, Chung Myung is more special. Because of that, Ungum believes that those who dare to challenge the sacred dragon of Mount Hua without much thought will understand why Chung Myung was given that nickname. But still, Ungum thinks that they need someone to control Chung Myung. The sect head himself isn't sure if anyone can control Chung Myung. Ungum also tells him that he is thinking of several people to accompany him. In the cafeteria, Chung Myung eats his food very greedily. Witnessing that left Wee So-hang dumbfounded. He then asked what the rumors were that he was wrong. He didn't want to believe that the sacred dragon of Mount Hua ate so disgracefully. Even if Jong Yoon, who was sitting beside him, was the sacred dragon of Mount Hua, then he would believe it even more. While eating his food, Chung Myung also said that everyone had practiced hard when he wasn't around, and surprised all the students here. They all get mad at Jong Yoon because they finally had 3 comfortable months without Chung Myung. But Jong Yoon called him earlier. Jong Yoon answered Chung Myung that they all practiced hard. Unbelievable. Chung Myung said that he should see the results of their hard work then. But Jong Yoon interjected, and reasoned that the matter with Hua Shadow Sect was more important right now. Chung Myung agrees. Destroying their heads is the top priority. So Chung Myung then asks when they are leaving. Jong Yoon replied that the head of the sect said they would leave tomorrow morning. Due to leaving earlier than the sect head originally said, Jong Yoon was sure the situation must be more urgent than he thought. So Jong Yoon told them to pack things when they finished eating, because they had to be able to leave immediately. Chung Myung finally finished eating and went to get ready. After Chung Myung left, the students here felt relieved because they thought they would be beaten. One of them was afraid that they were afraid they would die, and thought that this was a living hell. Hearing the students' complaint, Wee So-hang became confused. He's pretty sure that Chung Myung is the youngest here. However, not only did Chung Myung speak casually to everyone, but his seniors even acted cautiously around him. Noticing the flustered Wee So-hang, Jong Yoon advised not to bother trying to understand the situation, as he would immediately understand everything no matter if he wanted to. The promised time has come. Wee So-hang was worried because someone had not arrived yet, and they had to leave quickly so they could get there on time. Jong Yoon convinced Wee So-hang not to worry. He was sure that everyone would gather in time. A moment later, Jo Gul notices someone coming. He also said that they had arrived, and it was Senior Baek Chun. Wee So-hang was surprised and very interested to hear that name. He had heard that he was the one who led the disciples to Jianghu to subdue the bandits and save many people, Mount Hua's sword of justice, Baek Chun. Wee So-hang was amazed to see Baek Chun and thought that he looked really cool. Besides that, the Susana that he gave was truly heroic. Jong Yoon also asked if Baek Chun slept well last night. With a very annoyed face like a gangster, he asked Jong Yoon if he would sleep well if Jong Yoon was him. It was too bad for Baek Chun to have returned from his closed practice. But now Baek Chun had to travel to Jianghu with him. Witnessing that left Wee So-hang dumbfounded and confused. After noticing Wee So-hang's whereabouts, Baek Chun asked him who he was. Wee So-hang also introduced himself as Wee So-hang from the Hua Shadow Sect and said that he was happy to meet him. When Wee So-hang was introducing himself, Yu Iseol stared at Wee So-hang from behind, which made Wee So-hang very surprised. He wonders since when a girl is behind him. Then, After he took a closer look, he thought that Yu Iseo looked pretty. Despite having a cold expression, she still looked admirable to him. Wee So-hang felt that he had never seen someone as beautiful as Yu Iseo before. Yu Iseo ignored Wee So-hang and walked past him. Wee So-hang thought that this was a unique situation. There were so many people in the sect, but everyone he met was extraordinary. Yet there were people who surpassed them all. A moment later, there was the sound of someone's footsteps that made everyone groggy. Chung Myung finally arrived and said that the others arrived earlier. In their hearts, they curse Chung Myung and think that they don't want to work too hard. Chung Myung asks Baek-chun if he will go too. While looking away, Baek-chun says yes. Chung Myung understands that Baek-chun is also leaving, but he doesn't understand why Yu Iseol is also leaving. Shortly after, someone opened the door. Upon seeing the person coming out of the door, they all saluted the sect head. The head of the sect then summoned Wee So-hang and said that he knew that Wee So-hang was worried about many things, but he could guarantee that they were all the most trustworthy people within the Mount Hua Sect. So the sect head believed they would be a great help to Wee So-hang. Wee So-hang was grateful for the sect head's help at a difficult time. The sect head ordered Baek-chun to lead them properly. He then ordered Jong-yoon, Jo-gul, and Yu Iseol to help Baek-chun. And lastly, the sect head summoned Chung Myung. With his eyes full of doubts, the sect head asks Chung Myung not to cause trouble. Chung Myung is amazed that the head of the sect can say something different from what he is saying to the others. The sect head pleads with him until Chung Myung reluctantly accepts. After saying all he wanted to say, the sect head ordered them to go to Nanying, help the Hua Shadow Sect, and let the world know that the Hua Mountain Sect was still alive and well. Everyone accepted the assignment and took their leave of the sect head. 2 years is quite a long time. And now was the time to let the world know how different the Hua Mountain Sect was. The story begins in a gray atmosphere above the desolate westland sky. Dark clouds loom over a ruined house. There we see a boy kneeling in front of his parents' decapitated corpses, his tears falling in puddles, his hopes shattered, the world over for him. Suddenly there are heavy footsteps breaking the pool of blood. 2 monsters were seen approaching the boy, and instantly the monster made a fatal attack, severing his head and sending his body flying through the destruction. The monster was covered in spikes on its back, its smile dripping blood. There was a black halo floating above its head. The monster held onto the boy's broken body. There were 2 monsters, one covered in scales all over its body, and the other crawling on all 4s with spikes on its back, a third eye peeking out from its forehead, its smile wider than that of the Joker in the Batman movie. Above the heads of both of them was a black circle hovering above their heads. The crawling monster asked the monster with the spikes on its body if we would save one more serving for later. But suddenly from behind, with a sudden movement, the boy jumped to attack the monster with spikes on his back. From behind he tried to grab the monster by the neck, but alas, his attempt failed. The monster turned around and was able to easily grab the boy by the neck and then slam him down. With what strength he had left, the boy tried to resist, but the nail monster viciously grabbed the boy's arm and tore it off. One of his left arms was cut off by the nail monster, but suddenly there was something that shocked both monsters. The eyes of both monsters widened, shocked when they saw that the arm of the boy, who was about 8 years old, could grow back, like a lizard's tail. The boy's frail body spurted blood. He writhed in pain and cried as his torn body grew back into another arm. This made the monster grin curiously, while the other 2 were shocked by the never-before-seen occurrence and tried to make sense of the situation. They concluded that they had a new toy that they could play with at will. What's more about the endless supply of food that can fill their stomachs forever? Since they claimed the boy was theirs, they planned to name him Lizard's Tail. It was a name they gave him because he had regenerative abilities that allowed him to regrow severed limbs and repair damaged parts. The regeneration ability was originally thought to be God's gift to him, but now it was merely an agonizing curse that would last for several years. The screams of the teenage lizard's tail being torn to shreds as he was chained to a boulder, they proceeded to release the tormented teenager. The crawling monster provoked him and intended to fight him. He had been in this situation several times, only to lose. These fights that he would never win served as a way to feed sadism. The crawling monster that didn't care who he was fighting, and even used his deceased parents to provoke him for the purpose of driving him mad. Being provoked like that obviously made him very angry. He then jumped towards the monsters and rammed himself. Unfortunately, One of the monsters was quick enough to grab his left arm and rip it off and eat it, but Lizard's tail didn't give up. He fought back, preparing to hit the monsters with an uppercut, but his punch was ineffective. His punch missed, and instantly the monster grabbed his wrist, crushed it, then bit him. Still unwilling to give up, Lizard's tail took this opportunity to counterattack. Painlessly, he broke off his regrown arm and used it as a weapon. Like a razor-sharp knife, he slashed the monster until its mouth was torn open. He escaped the monster's clutches. One of the monster's friends mocked his friend who was successfully injured by Lizard's tail, who was a human. Not accepting being mocked, the nail monster got up and grabbed Lizard's tail, who was still lying on the ground from exhaustion. He was slammed, and his head was injured. But again he fought back. One of the crawling monsters then said to just let him go, mocking him as the weakest monster, for not being able to kill Lizard's tail, who was only a human. He continued to fight, releasing himself from the shackles. He chewed through the chain. His teeth were broken, his mouth dripping blood. He was dragged back to captivity. Moments later, the sound of clanging metal echoed throughout the mountainside. A man saw bloody footprints on the ground. It looked like human blood, he thought. He rushed to follow it to make a rescue. The man heard the sound of people shouting. Lizard's tail, who saw another human on the mountain, then tried to warn him to run away from the monsters. Hearing the screams of the captive Lizard's tail, the man was not afraid. He bravely walked towards them, in order to free Lizard's tail from the monster's shackles. A man with a pole hanging on his back. He thanked Lizard's tail for shouting and telling him where the monsters were. The two monsters looked at the man as a weak human. They prepared to attack him, but their expectations were wrong. The man took out a bell and rang it. Then from the base of the bell's handle shot out a strong gust of wind. A sword came out from inside his shirt. He slashed at the two monsters there. During the fight, the man revealed his identity. He was Chun Ma, a monster hunter. He belonged to a group of humans who specialized in killing monsters. Seeing that, Lizard's tail was amazed. He was amazed. Now that the chains that shackled him were off, he seemed to have a new purpose. Her tears flowed. He wanted to live. He wanted to become a monster hunter. Lizard Tail begged Chun Ma to make him a monster hunter. Chun Ma turns to him and is surprised to see him smashing a rock to cut off his arm. Lizard's Tail says that he has regenerative abilities and recounts his years of experience as a monster captive. It then told him that he didn't need to become a soldier and begged him to teach it how to kill monsters. Seeing that ability, he regretted not discovering it in time. He wondered what kind of life the boy had been living. Seeing his strong determination, Chun Ma agreed and would recruit him for training. He wanted to teach the boy and their group to fight monsters. Chun Ma then asked the boy's name and he said the name the monster had given him. Lizard's Tail is the name the monster gave him. Chun Ma asked if he wanted to change his name, but he said no. Lizard's Tail accepted the name as his own. He will never forget what they did to him. Then Chun Ma and warned him that the training method would be very painful. Lizard's Tail said that he had endured endless pain for years, and killing monsters was what he wanted to do. Seeing his strong determination, the monster hunter gave him the information to kill one of the monsters that was still alive. The dark circle hovering over the monster's head would disappear once the monster died. The monster that originally captured the Lizard's Tail is still alive, and Chun Ma plans to help him get his first kill. To his gratitude, moments later the monster woke up and found himself chained to a boulder. The monster woke up and found himself in chains. He tries to escape before receiving a stab from Chun Ma, who is sitting on a boulder. He tells the monster that he will kill it if it tries to escape. He jumps down and tells the monster to wait and will be given a chance to escape. The man taught Lizard's Tail how to have divine power in different areas and told him that all humans are connected to divinity if one immerses themselves in that divinity and feels its power. They can use divine power. That is why monster hunters have strong powers. To have divine power is to open the sixth sense. Someone told him that it usually takes a long time to open the sixth sense, but it varies depending on the person. It was unlocked, as mentioned earlier. The process would be very painful, and he asked Lizard's Tail if he was okay with it, and he agreed. The process started with Chun Ma putting his hand on his head and starting to shake the bell. The wind gathered to the handle of the bell, then out of nowhere the boy began to feel something. An ominous dark aura seeped out of his body, and Chun Ma explained that it was a sense of divine power. Chun Ma also checked the condition of his body. Lizard's Tail says that it's not painful, but rather creepy. Qianwu tells him that it's just the beginning. Usually one has to work slowly to build trust with the Godhead in order to be able to have this power, and if one pushes themselves to have divine power, Godhead will refuse the request. What worried Lizard's tail was that if the request for power possession was rejected, would he still be able to have power? Qianwu, however, assured him that even if possession is denied, one can still forcefully hold him and undergo incomplete possession. However, those who are incompletely possessed will have half the power of the normal amount and will not be able to use the full power. With half of the power, the man then tells Lizard's tail to close his eyes and focus only on his sixth sense, and there he will know how to summon divine power. Lizard's tail started to try his first attempt to summon it. He only heard a sound at first, then suddenly he opened his eyes. All blackened behind him, there was lightning pouring out of his body. He kneels on the ground. Qianwu asks if he can endure the pain. He tells him that he needs to force himself to endure it. Lizard's tail still closes his eyes and tries again. But this time it's faster, and he manages to hold on for now, despite the pain he receives as divinity tries to escape. Qianwu tells him that all he has to do now is endure the pain. Feeling the new power in his body, Lizard's tail moved, taking large powerful steps before running towards the monster that had once captured him, who was currently chained up. Lizard's tail galloped towards the monster that was chained to the boulder. With all his might, he shouted to provoke it. The enraged monster then broke free. The chains began to break piece by piece, allowing the monster to dodge Lizard's tail's attacks. The boulder he was chained to now turned into a pile of rubble, and the monster was shocked at what he saw. A hunter about to kill its prey. Lizard's tail explains to the monster that he can escape if he manages to defeat him. He taunted the monster and prepared for the upcoming battle. Utilizing his newly acquired divine powers, a cloud of dust began to surround the battle area. The monster was overwhelmed by the attacks made by Lizard's tail. Lizard's tail initiated another attack and ran as the monster grew spikes on its back that evaded him. The monster was not to be outdone then. With its sharp claws, it slashed at Lizard's tail's calf. Lizard's tail felt the impact of the wound from the attack, but the pain could be compared to a light scratch, which made him smile widely. Then he started a counterattack and ran at the monster once again, but got slashed on the cheek and calf, causing him to stumble. Momentarily, the monster took advantage of the situation and went to pierce Lizard's tail's eyes, but to his surprise, Lizard's tail disappeared into thin air before being stabbed. He then taunted the monster about how easy it was to deceive them, and then began to deliver powerful blows to the monster's face that knocked it several meters away. The monster took a lot of damage. Qianwu, who saw the fight there, concluded the impact of his short training can bring out strong power, and the Lizard's tail's determination to take revenge. Qianwu was amazed by his performance as he made agile movements while enduring pain. He said he had a talent for killing monsters. Meanwhile, in the battle area, Lizard's tail landed a blow to the monster whose back was filled with spikes. Not remaining silent, the monster tore its flesh, broke its body parts, and punched Lizard's tail. Receiving a crushing blow did not make the Lizard's tail lose. He tried to fight back, even though he was already lying on the ground. Lizard's tail screamed, spat out blood, and cut off his own arm. It was a doma, the name of the weapon made from his own arm. Lizard's tail ran at the monster, stabbing it, slashing and smoothly removing the monster's flesh. Qianwu was shocked to witness the gruesome scene. He laughed out loud as he felt the thrill of enjoyment in this fight. He took back the monster and started to pick up the spikes on its back, then pulled it out of its body. He then grabbed its arm with a wide grin and tore off the monster's arm. And then there was a shrill sound of pain from the monster. The monster screamed in pain as it lost an arm, then Lizard's tail made its next attack. He sent shockwaves throughout the area. A cloud of dust wrapped around the area Lizard's tail was in. The monster took advantage of this and planned to attack its head after its vision was obscured, then waited a moment for the right time, and after the dust completely enveloped Lizard's tail, the monster sprung into action and began its attack. The monster's sword almost reached the Lizard's tail's head, making the monster feel a certain sense of victory, but the long, sharp sword that was supposed to pierce the target's brain was shattered into pieces. What was confusing was that as the blade of the monster's sword wrapped its head around the situation, the blade pierced through the flesh of the Lizard's tail, but didn't fully penetrate it. Caught by Lizard's tail's flesh, he forced the force used back into the blade, causing it to shatter. Lizard's tail taunts the monster. The monster is helpless. The monster tastes its death. The final attack, Lizard's tail slashes the monster's head with great force, Its head rolled a few meters away from its corpse, but somehow still managed to speak, speaking of its shame, and questioning why it had to end up in the current situation with Lizard's tail. They approached the severed head, dropped the staff, and then grabbed it, as the dark circle on the monster's head disappeared, and marked the beginning of Lizard's tail's first kill. He planned to name the monster. Before his last breath, he named it the beginning of vengeance, marking his first step on his journey to become a monster hunter. With the decapitated head of his former captor lying before him, Lizard's tail finally had hope to avenge the death of all monsters. Qianwu told him that it was time to go to the nearest village. Lizard's tail, or nicknamed as Lizard's tail, paused for a moment. He had been longing for freedom for years and was also very grateful for his savior. Moments later, as the sun was about to set, Lizard's tail asked Qianwu what would happen if it took a lot of time to go into a trance. There was a momentary pause, and then Qianwu explained that Lizard's tail's hatred shortened the time it took, but didn't think he did it all at once, or maybe it was guilt, he said, a boy who didn't even know the existence of monster hunters. People like that are rare. They were about to arrive at the village, but suddenly a huge explosion erupted from the center of the village. They geared up and had then rushed into the village before it was too late. The villagers panicked and scrambled from the presence of the monsters. A large group of monsters were seen gnawing on their victims due to the lack of hunters in the area. One of the monsters ran away from the group and proceeded to try to feast on a boy who tripped while trying to escape, before the monster grabbed a bit of Lizard's tail, ran in, and dragged the monster away from the boy. Cracking his head wide like a watermelon, then he looked towards the monsters looming from the roof in front of him, which surprised the monsters as they thought there would be no hunters around and started to have internal strife, which some of the monsters tried to do. To escape the fight, but only to be sliced in half by Qianwu, he was confused about the existence of the Guardian Division, and why none of them were defending the villagers. Some monsters were confident to take the Downshin, but only to be destroyed by his attack, and some strategized, but only lost their lives due to lack of time to plan. One of the monsters even made a last-ditch effort, and said he would eat at least one person before dying. He jumped down the building and ran towards the boy Lizard's tail had just saved, but before he tried anything, he got a blow from Lizard's tail to the face which smashed his head and sent his corpse flying. The boy stared at the monster's corpse before Lizard's tail kicked the corpse so that he could stop the boy from seeing Qianwu's death reunite with Lizard's tail. The villagers who witnessed the fight cheered for their savior. The moment Lizard's tail received his well-deserved praise. He saved, and Lashan thought the dead from the roaring crowd. The village chief comes out thanking their savior and asks if they need anything. Qianwu took advantage of this and asked the chief to give food and clothes to Lizard's tail, their savior. The chief took Lizard's tail and told the villagers to guide him to the bathhouse. And to prepare the clothes and food they brought, Lizard's tail left, but Qianwu noticed another presence in another area. Another group of hunters had just arrived and were currently investigating the monster's corpse. Qianwu approached them with an angry aura that scared the trio of hunters. He then asked them if they were responsible for guard duty due to the lack of guards in the area. He asked them what would have happened if he never came, and if they would continue to make excuses in front of the dead. He then told them to leave and started apologizing to the victim's family and took responsibility for the victim. Time passed and night fell. Qianwu rested outside waiting. Lizard's tail's footsteps could be heard approaching him, and he saw a well-groomed Lizard's tail who was fully dressed and had his hair cut. The young Lizard's tail thanked his savior once again, and he had achieved a new goal of killing all monsters as if they never existed. From the beginning, Jin told him that it was a difficult goal and it would be better if he became a monster hunter. Lizard's tail agreed with him back then. He couldn't see anything because he was overwhelmed by vengeance, but now that he was determined to become a monster hunter, he then said that he had no shame and knelt down and begged to accept him as his disciple. And he wanted to see the path in front of him. Sin walked through it. As the silence passed, he then asked Lizard's tail to follow him and called him Lizard's tail. His apprentice opened his eyes wide with joy and then chased after his new teacher. As they started their journey, Qianwu told his new apprentice that it was going to be a tough journey for both of them and hoped he was ready for it before they left the village. The boy that Lizard's tail saved earlier shouted his thanks to him that someday he would be a rookie too, and that he would save people in the future like him. The young Lizard's tail acknowledged his cheers and raised his fist as a sign that he would do his best, and they left to take the next step towards their destination. The night stars shone brightly in the sky. Their teacher and student left the village a while ago and began to explain about monster hunters and asked Lizard's tail's opinion on what it was. Lizard's Tail replied that they were hunters who killed monsters. At the end of the story, Cheon-woo explained that he wasn't completely wrong, but it was only half the truth. Hunters function as human protectors and monster destroyers. There are two divisions of monster hunters that share the same fundamental ideology, but have different core goals. The first is the Guard Army, where the main goal of the hunters is to protect human territory and destroy the monsters that attack it. On the other hand, the other group is called the Advanced Division, whose goal is to start far from human territory to eradicate monsters. Cheon-woo then asked his newly appointed student which division he wanted to join, and Lizard's Tail replied that he would join the Advanced Division without a second thought. After knowing what division he had chosen to join, this was a good start. And Cheon-woo told him that they can start training, which makes young Lizard's Tail's spirit rise. He explained that the training they will be doing is running and confused Lizard's Tail about his goal, and he started to lose determination. Shin then explained that they will be running while having strength, so they will also train to maintain this spirit, making Lizard's Tail utilize strength. But he wondered why Chin didn't do the same for him. Chin then explained that he doesn't need to because God's strength is delivered to a certain extent. When one achieves perfect possession, after which they start running at high speed, time passes, and daylight can be seen in the sky. The students and teacher are still seen running and make it to the canyon they have passed through, and the lizard looks tired. Cheon-woo sees something in front of them and tells his student that they are going to take a break. Then he points to the monster feasting on the dead animal. The lizard grins and then makes his arm stick by tearing off its arm. The monsters heard the approaching humans, and their presence made them hungrier, and they started to start a fight. Lizard's Tail quickly eliminated one of them with a quick swing, crushing the monster's head. 3 more monsters started attacking Lizard's Tail simultaneously, but he managed to kill all 3 in one swing. The guarantee left them a big splash mark on the canyon wall. Another monster managed to sneak in and attack, but was quickly countered, and his head was smashed by Cheon-woo to the ground. He then shouted at Lizard's Tail from a distance, telling him that he had to dodge all the monsters' attacks before killing them. Lizard's Tail asked if it was necessary. Then Cheon-woo explained that it would make him stronger, so he had to do it. Lizard's Tail obeyed the lesson of his master, and then to dodge the oncoming monster attacks before counterattacking, without leaving the head behind. A group of monsters tried to gang up on Lizard's Tail, but he jumped a few meters above the ground and remembered what he learned from his master. However, another monster jumped in the air, and the monster that jumped behind him managed to bite his arm. This angry Lizard's Tail then he grabbed his head, then started a grand slam, smashing the monster's head into the crater. A group of monsters began to swarm around him. Then out of nowhere, the spirit that Lizard's Tail possessed shouted at Lizard's Tail that only he could hear. His grip strengthened, and he ran through the crowd of monsters, and everything in his path got sliced in half, leaving destruction. Then another swarm starts ganging up on him as they reveal their hunger and greed for him, but they are all killed with one swift slash. This confuses the remaining monsters, making them aware of their human hunger for Lizard's Tail. It taunts the remaining monsters, and they all attack him simultaneously. Moments later, the canyon is covered in blood, and we see Lizard's Tail lying down and resting. From all the fun fights he just finished, Cheon-woo then tells him it's time to leave after finishing the fight, which surprises Lizard's Tail. He then explains that they have to leave because Lizard's Tail looks hungry, and that they have to go to the next village to get food. A moment of silence filled the area, then filled with confusion. Lizard's Tail was hungry before he realized what he had to do. A moment later, they were seen running while in a trance. Despite not getting enough rest, they ran from one village to another, and every time they saw a monster, they finished them off and started running again. Initially, this regime lasted for a few days, then a few weeks until they ran so much. Lizard's Tail lost track of time and ended up being on the verge of collapse before they made it to the next village. The village they had just arrived at and looked so big, and Lizard's Tail asked his master if they planned to rest and eat there, but Cheon-woo told him that they would eat on the go. To Cheon-woo's confusion, Lizard's Tail then pointed up at the clouds, and Lizard's Tail tried to see what he was pointing at, but was obscured by the sunlight and clouds. Lizard's Tail squinted then behind the clouds, revealed a large flying turtle ship, with a large golden dragon head on the bow of the ship. The ship would be leaving soon. They would eat and rest there as the ship left for the hunter base, which excited the young and persistent Lizard's Tail. Lizard's Tail and his teacher's ship had reached their destination, Central City, and they soon arrived happily. This Lizard's Tail approached the window and pressed his cheek against the glass, gazing at the impressive sight before him. As he analyzed the city, he wanted to live somewhere like that after arriving. Lizard's Tail couldn't help his curiosity, and asked his teacher why they had come to Central City when he said he would take him to the hunter's headquarters. The teacher, understanding his confusion, replied calmly, revealing that a new headquarters for the hunters had been established in Central City. Lizard's Tail must have realized that there must be a significant reason why the headquarters was not in Central City. Perhaps Central City offered more resource opportunities or strategic advantages to the hunters in their operations, a big tree that they could see from their position in the new headquarters. Motivated by his desire to become a hunter, he then posed the question once again to his teacher, seeking guidance on the path he should follow to become a hunter. In response, the teacher assured Lizard's Tail that he would vouch for him and his potential. This endorsement carries considerable weight in the hunter world, implying that Lizard's Tail's teacher highly values his skills and character. And to show his dedication and commitment to becoming a monster hunter with Qianwu's reference, the man of the table allowed Lizard's Tail to join the advanced division, an opportunity usually reserved for experienced and skilled hunters. The man then showed Lizard's Tail his monster hunter outfit and story, only asking him to give it to him. The man from the table secretly became annoyed when Lizard Tail spoke to him informally. Considering his face looked young, he hid his annoyance and gave him a set of basic colored monster hunter outfits. Qianwu, on the other hand, was busy reading a book when one of the battle commanders called out to him. They exchanged greetings with each other after not seeing each other for a long time. Lizard's Tail observed the interaction between his teacher and his son. Noticing his son's hand resting on his teacher's shoulder as a protective disciple loyal to his teacher, he confronted his son with threatening remarks, but Qianwu wisely pushed Lizard's Tail's head and called him an immature disciple. The conversation between the two continued, but as Lizard's Tail listened, he couldn't help but hear the grumbles heard from the students here without his knowledge. The attentive students heard, so they threatened him back that they would blow his hair out, saying such words and actions were inappropriate when speaking to their elders or showing proper respect in the monster hunter community. The students then saluted Qianwu and inquired about Lizard's Tail's seemingly rude behavior. Seeking clarification and understanding, Qianwu then asked Lizard's Tail to address the other students, but he only said they were arrogant and stated that he was much stronger than the other two, which they didn't like in the midst of the full atmosphere and tension between the students. Two other students suddenly laughed lightly. One of them suggested that they settled their differences by finding out which one of them was truly stronger. Playfully, he turned to Qianwu, seeking her opinion on the matter, and highlighted the idea of the students each engaging in a competition for a cleanup operation to hunt monsters. He took the opportunity to make an important decision with the approaching operation. He spoke to the assembly, appointing Qianwu as the platoon leader, a position of great responsibility and authority within the team that Lizard Tail was proud of. Looking at the very noisy students, Qianwu thought they were very noisy for a platoon that was supposed to work together and operate as a cohesive team. Then they proceeded to a place that looked like where they were going to ride. A man was waiting for them there. He was responsible for organizing the vehicle and providing the necessary coordinates for their mission. Realizing the importance of their task, Qianwu gathered the students, instructing them to walk to the waiting stretcher, indicating that it was time to start their journey. Afterwards, Qianwu opened the coordinates and placed them on their stretcher, saying goodbye, and then leaving the Lizard Tail always eager for new adventures and experiences. Quickly, Lizard's Tail found himself fascinated by the palanquin, comparing it to the dragon ship they had previously traveled on. With both traveling at their speed and efficiency, he felt an excitement within him for no reason. In addition to their mission, one of the students named Ran asked Qianwu if she was resting, but she wasn't there for that, and was present for a much more important purpose than the others, sensing an opportunity to tease Rayon and Lizard's Tail. The attempt to interrupt her suggested she was also resting, unfazed by the provocation. Lizard's Tail's bead smirked in response, further fueling Raon's dislike. With an authoritative voice, Qianwu shouted and ordered them to start the operation immediately. The students went into action, readying their weapons and mentally preparing themselves to challenge Blizzard's Tailgrin with anticipation and excitement, ready to kill them all. Qianwu shouted again, ordering the students to come forward and stay focused on the mission. Lizard Tail jumped out, unleashing his agility and prowess, while Ran was somewhat unsettled by Lizard's Tail's strong determination. Expressing his uneasiness, mentioned that he disliked the seemingly possessed state exhibited by Lizard's Tail, but with the operation now underway, there was little time for personal preferences or concerns in response. Defiantly, he urged the other students to show Lizard's Tail the difference in their abilities, setting the stage for potential competition in the mission. Amidst the intense battle, Rayon asked his partner to take a short break, and he would clear the field for him. But of course, as a monster hunter, the rest shouldn't be in his vocabulary, so he told Rayon to focus on the mission and take care of their business. He beat his chest and shouted to explode the burning heart. He now had a heart divinity, as if he had a titan on his back filled with flames that burned his eyebrows. He jumped so high with an astonishing leap. Defying gravity itself, he ascended to the great heights, soaring through the air like a mythical creature in flight. An asked Fiery Fist which displayed a breath of fire divinity that immediately encompassed the various monster lands of the captured monsters. Within range of the attack, Jiang cried out in anguish as the intense heat enveloped them. While Rayon complained while running because he had just told Jiang to just calm down, he then confusedly asked why Jiang was angry, maybe because his eyebrows were on fire. Rayon's connection to the divine power of thunder surged to life within him. He managed to possess it, and with speed and agility, he accelerated, moving with a speed that mirrored the crackling of lightning strikes streaking across the dark sky. He gave chase, and Lizard's Tail, who was also running to get to the monsters, who sensed the exact moment Rayon took decisive action as she lowered her weapon with all her might. A cascade of lightning exploded, transforming the surrounding area into a mesmerizing garden of Rayon. The electrified brilliance shattered her weapon, throwing Rayon's weapon, her illuminated flower garden, collided with the ground with a powerful impact, releasing a shockwave that rippled through the skillfully proud area. She asked Lizard's Tail to tell her what he thought of it, and if he was surprised by her strength in a display that defied all expectations. The unperturbed Lizard's Tail nonchalantly tore her arm from her body, again leaving Raon and Jiang behind. They were stunned by the bewildering scene in front of them. They sent a jolt of disbelief through their veins as they witnessed the incredible regenerative abilities. From the Lizard's Tail's body, the realization dawned on them that the Lizard's Tail had an incredible ability that allowed it to regrow severed body parts with great ease. To a Rayon, it wasn't a big deal if one didn't go to the sky, perhaps as long as one didn't do it. Jiang observed Lizard's Tail's unorthodox fighting style in the middle of the battlefield with curiosity and admiration. Endurance as evidence of carelessness and lack of understanding when it came to conserving stamina, he couldn't help but voice his opinion, saying that Lizard's Tail was a fool who didn't need to waste his energy by running endlessly. It was clear that Rayon and Jiang had different perspectives on Lizard's Tail's fighting prowess. Jiang then asked her what kind of training made her have such a fighting style. Comparing it to Ron's fighting style, he could tell at a glance that she was a fool who lost her stamina unnecessarily. But Lizard's Tail continued running as training and was determined to become a monster hunter. And just as he was about to tell more about his training, an unexpected event happened in front of him in an instant before Lizard's Tail could even finish his sentence. An unknown figure appeared in front of him as fast as a blink of an eye. Without hesitation, he pushed his hand forcefully into his chest. Lizard's Tail caught her completely off guard. A monster with pointy objects all over its body was now in front of her, and asked if she was the one who did. Lizard's Tail didn't answer, so the monster pushed her, causing her to fall. Raon nervously loudly made a joke to lighten the tense atmosphere around them. If not for Lizard's Tail's intervention, Raon and Jiang would now be dead due to not being able to regenerate their bodies like Lizard's Tail. Jiang tried to shake off his nervousness. The monster shouted angrily, asking once again if they were the ones who did. The stupid Lizard's Tail shouted back and admitted it. He boldly said that he would destroy the monster. He then received a powerful blow from the monster. Rayon shouted and warned her not to attack the monster recklessly, because it's not their opponent. Qian Wu, on the other hand, was watching their fight. Lizard's Tail again tore off his arm to make a weapon and attacked the monster even if he lost. 1,000 times it didn't matter, and he would still kill the monster. Raon and Jiang attacked the monster simultaneously, hoping to end the monster. But he only stopped him with one hand, each behind was Lizard's Tail, ready to attack him, and the monster realized it and was about to punch him in the face. Fortunately, Jiang was ready to punch also the monster's arm. He then shouted for Lizard's Tail not to lose focus, because they were in a battle with teamwork. They managed to land attacks on the monster. Thanks to Rayon, the monster flew away with powerful force. Meanwhile, Lizard's Tail recalled what happened if Jiang didn't block the monster's attack. His head would fly off, and he would die. The monster then showered them with gunfire. For them, there was nothing as bad as taking a hit. While carelessly, the monster would hit with all its might, and the demon ring around its head now woke up as the monster swung its weapon. Raon and Jiang recognized the danger, and sensed the disaster coming from the possible trajectory of the monster's weapon. They made a split-second decision to take evasive action, avoiding the deadly arc of the monster's attack. as they looked back at the remains of the standing rock formation before the monster slashed its weapon through the rock face, splitting it in half and making the three of them worried. Zhang told the Ran that in order to deal with the awakened evil monsters, they needed to increase their strength, otherwise they would be eaten by the monsters. Ran, who is now at level 3, and is now ready to take some action against the evil monster. According to Keian Wu, in training, the level of possession of the lizard's tail power ranges from level 1 to level 10. The first level means the lizard's tail can see images of divinity, while level 10 means complete impersonation. Lizard's tail is not even close to level 1, although he can kill monsters easily in terms of strength. He is more than level 1, but humans have to lean on the Godhead. He can defeat powerful monsters only when exerting the power of the Godhead. In other words, if Lizard's tail encounters a monster that has awakened the demon ring, he will not be able to deal with it. Nervously, she asked herself, what was she afraid of? She slapped her face, telling herself not to be afraid of dying, and that she should feel sad because she couldn't kill monsters if she died. She then calmed herself down and looked at Zhang and Ran, who were fighting for their lives to defeat the awakened evil monster. Zhang released his fire god breath again. But the fire didn't affect Ran. The monster, on the other hand, attacked the monster where their weapons touched and collided with each other. The monster couldn't believe it. Ran became stronger, and he was a little different than before. But the monster was so strong, he landed an important attack on Rayon's stomach, making him grunt in pain. It didn't work on the monster, other than the power of the ring. The monster was physically strong. He couldn't go in a one-on-one fight. In this case, Zhang suggested leading him to block the view, and then Ran would come out of nowhere to land. And Rayon's attack suggested leading the monster backwards, but the monster threatened to split them in two as the fierce battle continued. Zhang managed to launch a pinpoint attack, aimed directly at the monster's eyes from a strategic distance, that blinded it for a few seconds. The seconds of disorientation that Zhang provided a crucial window of opportunity for Rayon, who recognized the advantage that Zhang's attack gave him, sensed the opportunity that Rayon saw at that time, and did not waste a second before he attacked the back of the monster with his lightning. All the combination of Zhang's pinpoint attack and Rayon's lightning attack had caught the monster off guard, making it even more in pain. The idea to attack Zhang, who did not expect a sudden attack from the monster, but with concentration and calmness, he managed to avoid the monster's attack, made the monster even more angry. The monster then asked if they were angry with the issue of being born as monster food. Raon then confusedly asked what the monster meant, because they fled to where they were. Because they are afraid of the monster hunters built by humans. The monster then laughed, praising Rayon for being good at anything other than repeating the words of Pyong. On the other hand, with concentration and determination, it was stated that she would kill the monster and prove that it was not just repeating the words the monster said to stop the seduction and chatter and just come to her, so that she can cut them with her weapon, while Lizard's tail became an addition, joining the conversation again, full of strong determination and confidence. She remembered the training with her teacher, where he taught her how to defeat awakened monsters. According to Qian Wu, the power of divinity is still very large. One of the limitations is in his body, so it cannot hold much, and therefore the boundary of unconsciousness prevents the entry of the power of divinity. Qian Wu then teaches Lizard's tail to forcefully break the boundary and gather more power of divinity inside his body. He asks Lizard's tail to summon his divinity, so he does. Qian Wu continued to instruct him, such as letting his feet become roots, and the divine power flow through the ground into the body. The next step was to hold the possession and speed up the flow, and by the time he closed the root and cut off the flow, the lizard tail power had flowed at high speed. Her consciousness could stop it. She already had the regenerative body and mental strength to endure the pain, which was the only way to do it. Ran and Zhang, watching the lizard's tail, asked if the power of divinity that the lizard's tail possessed, because they thought that he was just an incomplete imitation or possession. While the monster clearly remembers the lizard's tail's shoulder was ripped off, but not because he knows that he can produce, he won't let him heal and return to him. Both the monster and lizard's tail come to each other. Both have different plans. Monsters wanted to keep her captive because of her regenerative body, while lizard tail planned to kill it and didn't want to make the same result as before, no matter what power it had. Lizard's tail looked quite chatty, so Zhang thought that it wouldn't last long, and they had to finish the monster quickly, with determination and conviction. Rayon and Zhang joined in a fierce and intense battle. They wanted to finish the battle early in the distance. Cheon Wu saw Lizard's tail while fighting the monster during their fight. Lizard's tail hit his stomach. He immediately recovered and hit the opponent's face. Both continued. Exchanging sticks when Lizard's tail was caught off guard, Rayon's help came immediately and he blocked the sword. It should have hit Lizard's tail. A moment later, Jang Suk also rushed to come from the air and used his fire divinity while saying the word breathe. This third time, he did a series of attacks, which in turn caused the monster to fall. This time, Lizard's tail was panting and his Rayon witnessed what he considered stupid with a lot of stamina. He asked Lizard's tails, would he faint? Lizard's tail failed to immediately silence her, saying she won't faint until she kills the monster. After Lizard's tail said it, the annoying Jang immediately said that even though Rayon is at the 3rd level, she can't face that kind of monster alone, so they have to face it together. Lizard's tails immediately agreed, but first, the insulting Rayon who reacted as soon as she heard it in their Rayon Banda, and Jang Suk's figure would speak they were talking about something, and Rayon asked if Jang Suk would do that. Jang Suk immediately replied and said he had no choice here. Raon can't do anything but remind him that if he uses it, it should be moderate and not suicidal. Jang Suk said they would leave first, and he would join them as soon as possible. Lizard's tail immediately said that Jang Suk didn't need to do it. He advised Ito to take a break, and that he would kill the monster. After that, Jang Suk concentrated and spoke to his divinity because of what Lizard Tail said to Jang Suk. They start fighting again before they start fighting with the monster. They do have another conversation on the other side. You can see the resurrected monster. Lizard's tail would be a problem, as his regenerative body was still dual human, referring to Rayon, and Jang Suk was already damaged, so convinced himself that he could do it according to this failure would mean death anyway, if he had to sacrifice his life. After he mentioned this, he held his devil's ring immediately. A black line appeared on his hand, and his body absorbed it at the other end. Rayon could be seen observing the place where the monster had fallen before. Just seconds later it suddenly appeared in front of her with a very fast action. Despite the monster's fast attack, Rayon still managed to dodge its attack. Here, the two began to exchange attacks. The first attack came from Lizard's tail. She kicked the monster, but caught Lizard's tail again, and forcefully went through it. But quickly the lizard tail recovered. The monster immediately rushed, and gave him a very strong blow, so that he sank to the ground, which was carried by the lizard's tail in turn a few seconds ago, and the monster immediately left that place. Being hit and suffocated this time, Lizard Tail was at a disadvantage. But then help immediately came from Rayon, who attacked him with Thunder's divine breath. After attacking the monster, he immediately searched and saved Lizard's Tail. But only a few seconds later, the monster immediately returned and attacked Rayon after making an attack. Lizard's Tail appeared out of nowhere and attacked Rayon. He hit him, but she immediately grabbed his face with her left hand and punched him in the stomach with her right hand. According to her, this would be easy to faint if Lizard's Tail couldn't breathe, but before Lizard's Tail's attack was reduced. It forced that part to his shoulders. Because of this, he released the Lizard's Tail. According to the monster, he sacrificed half of his life. But why are they like this? For a while he didn't realize that Rayon was going to attack him here. It was seen that Rayon's lightning was like a knife and pierced the monster's body one by one, and Rayon answered his previous question and said that they were strong. Despite the lightning flowing and piercing its body, the monster still managed to fight back. Rayon said she couldn't handle the monster anymore, so they had to hurry. When the Lizard's Tail was about to try to punch the monster, suddenly Jang, whose half body was on fire, stopped him, because he thinks the monster should be finished off with one punch. Here Lizard's Tail stopped and just looked at Jang Suk. Jang Suk walked slowly, looking even though his strength was now drained. There was a trace of suffering in his appearance, eyes watery and almost half of his body engulfed in flames. He told him to feel his suffering as he approached the monster. After saying these words, he placed his hand on the monster, which looked like a ball of fire, like the sun, and placed it on the monster's chest. Its body in less than a few moments gave off light. After this incident, the monster's body was burned. Raon looked relieved, and thanks to Jang Suk, they finished quickly, and now they could relax. But their attention was distracted when Lizard Tail asked if he was sure the monster was okay. Asked which monster, but seeing what he saw, Lizard's Tail was immediately surprised by what he saw. His colleague Jang Suk was engulfed in flames by his divinity. Jang Suk was seen struggling in the midst of the flames that were devouring his own body. Ron rushes over and mentions that he's late. According to him, the gold bracelet on his right arm must be removed. Lizard's Tail casually says that he will do it himself, but Qianwu immediately approaches and says that he will do it this time. Ron immediately denied it, because he thought the ground was melting, so it was very dangerous. But according to Qianwu, it's okay. At this time, Qianwu's hand looks radiating energy. Here he holds it over Jiang Suk's head and releases strong concentration on it. A few moments later, Jiang Suk returned to normal. At that time, Jiang Suk was surprised to learn that Qianwu helped him. He apologized and asked if Qianwu was hurt because of him. According to this, it's fine. He added that he placed his divine power around her, and she was also strong, which is why she wasn't hurt. Hearing that, Jiang Suk let out a sigh of relief. Here, Qianwu said that the mission was completed after he said that Jiang Suk, who was with him earlier, also came and apologized. On the other hand, even though Qianwu said that he was fine, his damaged hand could be seen. Moments later, Zhang and Raon climbed onto the stretcher at the same time as they were preparing to leave the place. Lizard's Tail looked up from the remains of the burning monster. He regretted that he didn't give it a name at the same time his leg was stumped on the burning body, and gave it a dismemberment, as if he was giving it a name of forgiveness. At the same time, Qianwu said goodbye to the two monster hunters. Here he said to tell that they were going to the north. He also told them to strengthen themselves, which they also promised. In a vision at this time, Monster Hunter goes completely away while the passenger is driving. The driver has a conversation. Raon tells Jiang Suk that he has to control his ability because Lizard's Tail is almost the main character. He doesn't directly call him by his name, but calls him Musclehead, which is immediately corrected by Jiang Suk, who says his name is Lizard's Tail, and orders him to reduce his crooked competition here. Upon hearing this, Raon changed the subject. Here he said that Qianwu mentioned that their territory will be upgraded soon. Because of this, both agreed to become stronger. This is where the conversation between the two of them started, and they continued to leave until Qianwu and Lizard's Tail were no longer visible. On the other hand, Qianwu noticed that Lizard's Tail was still thinking that the boy had worked hard, but he still needed to think about himself. Here Qianwu told him to stop and rest. He needs to rest, and Lizard's Tail immediately agreed to it. A while had passed, but Lizard's Tail's spirit was still burning. Here he was still wondering if there was another way to increase his strength and weapons. A few moments of thinking, then came an idea according to which he thought he could send a stream into the ground and flow it throughout his body. Here he thought and wondered, should he send it up his arm and try it? Then he would put many participants on his arm, but he also thought that when he did that, he would explode. Besides, his teacher also told him that he should sleep, so he went to sleep. In addition, it will try to do something tomorrow. But before a few seconds passed, someone thought about it according to what he thought the bones were still the same. He woke up and said, if focus on the bones, surely the bones can hold. It won't explode if sent to his bones in the first place. But he turned to the sleeping teacher. This time he decided to sleep again, but Lizard's Tail is still Lizard's Tail, who is stubborn. After a while, would be seen outside the guard post and start doing what he had been doing, thinking. At that moment he took a deep breath, and using the power of his divinity, he let it flow. He started to concentrate his power on the bones of his arm. After a while would be seen a lump growing, and the shape of his arm changing. He was surprised. His eyes widened as he stretched out his arm and threw it. He breathed a sigh of relief, and said to himself that he had really expected to live with a hand like that this time. She would try again, as she only now realized that she had done so. That she could pull her arm again without exploding. This time she celebrated. But a moment later she slapped herself, and told herself to practice again here. He repeated what he had done before. Here we can see him struggling. He repeats what he does over and over again until the next morning. When Qianwu wakes up, he thinks Lizard's Tail has woken up early, but little does he know that he has been practicing all night for his weapon. Qianwu stretched first and put his bed aside, then walked to the door and went out. As he came out, he could see the shock on his face, as the person who appeared before him was a bloodied environment. Flesh was scattered about, and Lizard's Tail seemed to be sleeping peacefully. A delivery bird was seen flying over the sky the next morning, carrying a package for Lizard's Tail. He didn't even flinch when it landed right next to him. The delivery bird then pinched his cheek with its beak, but he still wasn't fully awake, which surprised him for the second time. He had the bright idea to wake her up, so the delivery bird poked her cheek forcefully until she woke up. When she woke up, the delivery bird saw her frightened and crying like crazy and left in a hurry. Qianwu came in carrying the package and asked what was inside. He immediately replied that he had ordered a new uniform for her. Since she had already thrown away her torn shirt when she opened the package, she saw a small piece of paper with something written on it, stating that the payment for the uniforms would be deducted from her salary. After reading this, she immediately asked Qianwu if they were paid, and he said yes. Lizard's Tail sat down to open the package, while Qianwu stood up and saw marbles in a rectangular box next to his uniform. When he opened it, he immediately asked Qian-Wu what it was, and replied that it was a request marble. Qian-Wu then showed her how the request marble worked. He held up the marble in the center of the rectangle. He claimed that all she had to do was write her request. He can request anything including support and rescue. Next, he said that she would be tracked. Upon hearing that, it left Lizard's Tail dumbfounded. He stated that the Monster Hunter army had many interesting things after Qian-Wu mentioned the item. Lizard's Tail is reminded to put it to bed every time he wakes up, because they are not the only ones using it, as everyone else is using it, and their guardhouse should be kept clean. At the same time, she stated that if she went to the back of the guardhouse where they were staying, she would find a shovel and broom. After the conversation, she asked if Lizard's Tail was satisfied with the results of his training last night. Then he answered confidently, saying yes with the broom he was holding while cleaning the place he practiced last night. He heard some sounds approaching him according to the first sound, as if there was a monster there because of the blood here. 2 figures of people were seen. The sound just came from a woman who was talking to a man besides the 2. They had one more friend while the 2 continued their fight. The one yawned as they walked almost to the guard post. Qian-Wu recognized them and was surprised that his friend was a monster hunter whom he called Tisu, along with 2 squad members. Qian-Wu introduced Lizard's Tail to them, and they also introduced themselves to the boy. The first squad member introduced himself, and the second was a woman who introduced herself as Hemo, after Qian-Wu's introduction mentioning that Tisu was like lizard tails with a regenerative body. During their conversation about tissue work, came up with an idea. She thought that she could get Qian-Wu. Here he was already getting interested. He mentioned a missing case according to which the monster division thought it was not important because the culprit was a monster. That immediately piqued Qian-Wu's interest as he expected. In response to Qian-Wu, Tisu continued to tell how she did her undercover work. In her investigation, she witnessed how the kidnapping took place while standing at the height of a tree. A drunk man was seen walking for a while, then a monster with octopus-like tentacles appeared and grabbed the man here. She deduced that it was a kidnapping, as the monster did not kill the man. In fact, she had 2 victims that she was carrying and said that she was about to give birth, which further supported her conclusion. To further convince Qian-Wu, she added more information. According to her, she thought she would find monsters in their territory if she followed them. But they came from the north, and the step she took was right as it got Qian-Wu's attention. He even said that he created an underground, and this is where she realized they were kidnapping beyond borders. He also found out that they only travel at night, and he also found one of their hiding places. After saying these things, Qian-Wu agreed finally, said that he thinks that this kind of thing doesn't only happen in one place, but it might also happen in many other places, and one of them is this village. Qian-Wu said that if they didn't handle it properly, they could ruin everything. After hearing, Qian-Wu knew that he couldn't ignore such things. They continued their actions, and asked Qian-Wu if he was interested. If yes, he could be the commander, as he had a lot of experience leading. But Qian-Wu refused, as he didn't think the case could be solved if he took the lead, and offered the network to take the lead. This is where the network celebrates that his plan to get Qian-Wu. He can't help but hug Qian-Wu and say thank you. At sunset, Qian-Wu sat under a tree solemnly and spoke with his divinity. The tissue that saw him was resting. It is now apparent that he is not resting. In the next scene, we see Tisu and Lizard's Tail sitting and starting a conversation. She asks Lizard's Tail what ability he thinks she needs to know his ability to decide what role she should give him so that she doesn't have to bother because it's just an incomplete impersonation. Lizard's Tail replies there is no need with a relaxed language. This time, Tisu is surprised by what he says. After a while, she asks why he is talking informally. Does he not know that he is Qian-Wu's friend? He immediately replies as usual like a person with no appetite and says he is not used to such things. He asked her where she lived, but after a few seconds he didn't get an answer from her. This time Tisu gave up and said she would leave if he didn't want to talk about it. At night, at the height of the cliff, they were seen crouching down as if watching someone below. A few seconds later, Hemo was seen holding both hands above his head, as if hiding while lying down and saying that they were going out. Lizard's Tail, who was next to him, looked innocently at the same time, told Tisu that the other men could be seen, even though they could see the monsters with the large cage hanging on their backs, could be seen that there were people inside. They witnessed a conversation of 2 monsters praising the other monster for capturing 2 more people, so he happily asked if they could eat one. On the other side was a woman imprisoned in a large cage who was terrified and begging for mercy. The lizard's tail was immediately shocked by what he witnessed and was about to rush over. Tisu was also shocked and told him to sit down, but Lizard's tail didn't budge, and said that no one else understood that person's pain but him, because of the looks of her. Stopped with words, Tisu violently strangled him with one hand, and said that if he saved this person now, hundreds of people would die. Then they would have to sacrifice one. Tisu added that if Lizard's tail didn't like how he was handled, he would have to move up in rank where he could also take the lead. After the incident between the two, they were shocked to witness chaos in the group of monsters fighting over who would receive the prize. Because of this disturbance, the monster's previous plan to eat someone in the cage didn't go through. The 5 descendants breathed a sigh of relief because of this. Especially the lizard's tail monster started moving with Tisu's command. She immediately made them follow and leave the place. Then she finished off the remaining 7 monsters. She picked up 7 small stones and crushed them with one hand. After she did so, she immediately followed them. A few seconds later, she found her 4 companions who were standing still and seemed to be looking at something below. He was surprised to see the many cages containing the captives they had moved the captives into. This place and the monster with long white hair could be seen, as the person in charge of Chinwoo commented that he thought this was their last gathering place, then immediately called the 5 and changed the monster's operation, was talking about rewards. And this time their conversation was interrupted because Qian-Wu rushed in and landed in front of the monster, who was surprised by his speed. Qian-Wu paralyzed most of the monsters so that they could no longer fight. In an instant, Qian-Wu did what he had to do. The leader of the monsters that could barely move, he gave orders to the remaining monsters. Currently, he and Qian-Wu are assigned to keep the monsters out of the battle. He brought out his divinity. It was originally a god in Sumerian mythology. He was called in Akkadian, but Sumerians used to call him Inki, meaning living in water. It was his ability to control his blood, but if he bled a certain amount of blood, he would die. On the other hand, he could control others. As much blood as he wants by mixing a little of his blood with their blood using this ability. Damn, hold back the monsters. Himapun shows his ability here. His divinity can be seen. That is the god of healing. It appears in Greek mythology, whose ability is divine healing. His ability to heal the opponent's skin simultaneously, while cutting it so that the blood does not come out, even if the neck does not fall, the same as being cut, is called Waldo of healing. On the other side of Tisu and the god Duxini, it can be seen that Duxini is a kind of vicious ghost that crushes skulls. Lizard's tail is worried, because the monsters are already walking still with the network ability. Despite the distance he has destroyed the skulls of the remaining monsters, he gets 22 small pieces of earth and destroys them simultaneously as monsters, while Lizard's tail looked shocked at what he was currently witnessing. Dilapidated cages and destroyed areas could be seen by his side. Countless casualties could finally be seen after the battle between the monsters and the monster hunters. The captives were finally freed, at which point Tisu, staring at the crowd, took a marble request and sent a message using it. She went to the crying woman and gave her one of the requested marbles. She told her that they could be traced to where they were by the rescue team that came by, having it indeed accompanied by a barrage of tears. A series of thanks from the victims also came. Tisu and the others received the infinite thanks of the victims. At that time they only felt gratitude and relief. In the next scene inside the dark cave, we can see some of the remaining monsters who are currently their captives. In particular, 4 monsters bound by fibrous blood. Damn these captives, including the monsters who were responsible for them earlier in the thought of the attacking monsters. Why did the hunter capture him? In his mind, he thought that if only he could put his hand on his ring, he would be able to kill them. But Lizard's tail saw him, and with visible panic on his face, he said, "It looks like that." Planning something because of his eyes, Tisu immediately ordered him to cut off his hand, which Himo immediately obeyed. After a while, Tisu started asking questions. His first question to the first monster was, where did they go after gathering in this place? The first monster didn't give an informative answer, and only answered for no less than a second. Himo immediately beheaded him. The remaining captive monsters were shocked. The surprise on their faces could be seen from the speed of events. Along with the second question, the 2 captive monsters landed. Monster in charge interrupted his speech, indicated that Thiessen thought that they would talk. He seriously added that if their supply was cut off, something worse would happen. This time, without hesitation, Thiessen ordered to cut off his arms, legs, and spine. Himo immediately they fell to the ground. He told him to live the rest of his life like that, and he would set him free. But the monster in charge was still motionless. prostrate on the ground looking up and eyes wide open. He mentioned that Hemo thought he was strong, he should have gone to the north. Then the monster hunters are just their puppets, he added. After Litani, this lizard's tail charging monster couldn't resist and offered to kill him if he wanted to die so badly. But the network stopped him because according to this, he would free him, so Lizard's tail should let him suffer like that. After hearing that, Lizard's tail reluctantly kept quiet. The network continued to question his second captive monster. But just like the first monster, he didn't like the answer, so he also beheaded him. This time in the third monster, they got the answer that Tisu-san wanted to hear his way to Beelzebub. He said when Tisu heard this he couldn't believe it, and mentioned the word Beel offering above, or Beelzebel is a name derived from the Philistine god, officially worshipped in Ekron, and later adopted by some Abrahamic religions as the main demon. Beelzebub, also called Baalzebub in the Bible, is the prince of the devil. A few seconds of monsters attacking. Char spoke again, but less than a second later stopped immediately because of the blood that looked like a cloth covering his mouth. After this, Tisu continued to speak again. He said that the last captive monster should be comfortable, because the limbs and arms of the monster responsible for them had been cut off. But if he still had doubts, he allowed him to kill him after a few seconds of silence. He mustered up the courage to speak according to him. There was a path leading to the northern boundary underground. After saying this, Tissue, next knowing about its entrance here, he said that they needed to release it as a demon ring was needed to open it. He added that when he opened the door, they should let it live as they promised. The monster, then seriously replied that they were only keeping their promise and wouldn't be able to get out alive if they passed someone else. This time the monster attacked again, saying such words, and his fellow monsters finished him off and said if he wanted to die, then die, and he would live this time. The monster willingly walked towards Cliff and stuck out his spandrel-shaped hand. After he did this, immediately the cliff split into two and formed a path to the open door in front of them. Once the entrance was open, allowing the monster to leave as promised, but chances are it was not allowed to live, because right when it came out, the right time, was the arrival of the rescue team. Moments later, it was instantly killed by the rescue team who came here. They caught up with the Tissue and reported that their rescue had been completed. He asked where the support was, but he replied quickly that they were the only ones providing support. The people who came to support them were also put into the rescue work, because they had no idea of the number of casualties this time. He did nothing, and decided to give them a mission in the spacious room. The shadow of the monster can be seen in front of the throne, where another monster named Nava here. The two are heard talking about the chaos that happened. It tells Nava that the cliff door has opened, and there seems to be a problem here. A question forms in Nava's mind and clarifies his thoughts. He asks if the monster hunters have reached their place now. The monster stands in front of his navy, who immediately greedily comes to the conclusion that in this case, the monster hunters will soon come to their territory. Because they have found it, after a while, he immediately orders them to prepare what they need to solve the problem before the ball is found, when the monster turns around. Away from Nava, she indicated that she would return to their territory without any damage. After she said this, a swift force hit her neck. Nava's power unleashed, as he didn't like what the monster said. In fact, Nava said that this time he got to say these useless words casually. The monster's head was cut off, but still managed to apologize to Nava. A small smile was seen on his lips, while he reminded the predators not to return before hunting, and they had released a final litany saying to prepare to hunt each one of them. As the monster hunters descended the stairs from the entrance, they were amazed at the size of the place. On the other hand, the rescue team mentioned that they had not identified themselves yet. The gray-haired man introduced himself as Wood. The bald man introduced himself as Jinwan, and the woman with them introduced herself as Belle. While doing her stretches, Thiessen asked them about their abilities. They immediately replied that they had no special abilities, as they were called the Chosen Ones. When Lizard's Tail heard this, he was amazed. Despite his lack of knowledge, Qian Wu immediately explained this, and said that the Chosen Ones can borrow divine power. However, the great god helps many people. So he doesn't want to be owned by one person. That's why they can't use certain divine powers instead. They could exert God's power without being possessed, and their divine power was approaching the 10th level faster than anyone else. After Qian Wu said this, they immediately agreed, and said they could all exert divine power at the 6th or 7th level. After Lizard's Tail heard this, his emotions poured out, and he said that this was cheating because they needed to endure the pain of possession, whereas the Chosen Ones could exert divine power without being possessed. In other words, They were the opposite of incomplete possession. At the same time, Thiessen gave instructions to Qianwu, where the leader and guardian division was assigned. After this, they immediately took action. While moving sail, and Himo conversing, Pimo asked if he wasn't nervous, and Kyle immediately replied that he didn't know because he hadn't felt it for a long time in action. They were stopped because of the sound they heard moments after stopping. The wall on the other side suddenly broke down and spewed out many monsters who wanted to kill them. This time everyone used their own abilities to fight. After a while they were able to take down a few monsters, but according to Thiessen, he didn't think it was over. However, the monsters they were fighting were preventively awakened monsters, so they would have a hard time here, because their stamina might be depleted. The awakened monsters could create or strengthen their weapons using their demon rings. According to Thiessen, they could run out of energy, but they had to endure it to survive. They needed to move forward as much as they could. He added, but moments later the lizard's tail suddenly rushed, and Thiessen was surprised and angrily asked Qianwu, why did his disciple run away here? Qianwu's action was just apologizing because of Thiessen's frightening aura. According to him, he also did not expect what his disciple did moments later. Thiessen ordered his platoon to defeat the monsters during the fight. Qianwu can be seen in looking at him and praising him in his mind, saying he did a good job as he has held the divine power longer. They continued to fight, until Lizard's tail was confronted by a monster that resembled the monster that had captured him earlier here. He asked the monster if it was his relative. He added that his name was Vengeance, and the monster immediately reacted as it could not believe it could kill a monster that had a name, as monsters with names are considered high-ranking. Little did this monster know Lizard's tail was the only one who gave him that name. During his fight with the monster, the observing monster saw that Lizard's tail had a regenerative body, so he immediately reported it to Nava. When the witness reported the monster to Nava, he was delighted, and couldn't believe it was a regenerative body. He thought it would be a wonderful gift. He immediately ordered the monster named Hiru to prepare the reward and avenge the monster hunter. And on the other side of the monster hunters who had finished fighting after a while of waiting, they happily rested first, but before moving, they suddenly saw something. On the other side of their direction this time, Thiessen's face looked angry at what he had witnessed, the network staring angrily at the monster that was plastered in front of them, not because of the monster, but because of what it was carrying. What they saw now was a four-armed monster, in addition to its two hands that had two other large hands, on the opposite side of which, a net full of human arms could be seen. The monster hunters couldn't help themselves anymore from what they saw. Himo stepped forward and tried to move, but Tisu stopped him. She calmed him down and told him to be patient and stay still. This time the tissue asked the monster where it came from, but the monster replied as if he was having fun. He said with a smirk on his face that he was very happy collecting those arms, adding that there was nothing left for them, when they didn't hurry up indeed. This time the fire pent up inside them had exploded a while ago. It was Tisu who stopped her friends from moving, but this time it was she who couldn't hold back anymore and used her ability on the monster. Her blood spilled out and in an instant took its life. In the next few seconds rang the network giving orders to me, ordering her to exert her blood. Sayal accepted the order wholeheartedly and uttered the 5th level possession term. Here it could be seen that his hand had changed its shape. He had what looked like small branches growing on his skin. After a few seconds, he immediately let the blood flow into his hand and mixed it with the blood of the monsters. This time he was able to control the blood of the monsters that were in that place. Tisu said their destination didn't just end at the end of the road. He immediately told Tisu that he needed to find a hidden place somewhere nearby. And using her ability with enough blood that she got from the many monsters in that place, she managed to search every place after several times searching, until finally she found a deep spot. Upon seeing the deep spot, she immediately told Tisu that she had found one. Tisu immediately told her to focus and dig it up. Little did they know that this was the location where Nava's throne was located. When Sayal's blood came in, he was also surprised by the monsters that were currently in that area. At first they wondered what that red thing was, but they soon told him what it was. But Nava was no longer surprised by what he was witnessing. They didn't bother moving and let the monster hunters get there on behalf of the monster hunters. Kyle soon told him that his blood couldn't go any further. Here he was ordered to stop his ability and mark the path with her blood. Sayal immediately objected because according to her it was too far. If she did, the monster would probably erase her mark. The network immediately replied to this smugly, saying it wouldn't happen because the monster even provoked them to go in and do what had to be done. Here she collects blood in the center and splashes it. This time Tisu wholeheartedly orders her team to follow the bloodstains, and if the monsters do tricks, kill them where Nava is. Can be seen waiting for the monster hunters to arrive. When the monster hunters arrived in a flash, they made a path through which they made a triangular-shaped door in the dirt wall, which served as a barrier between them. In the opening of the monster hunters, he also revealed the appearance of two powerful monsters. First here is Nava, and the one standing next to her throne, Hiru, this time. Nava quickly deleted the meme. After a few seconds, Tisu spoke and asked if he was Nava's bastard. On the other hand, Lizard's tail wondered at the two monsters, asking the adjacent monster, who was the bastard who treated these monsters with some kind of dignified grace. The monster immediately responded with a warning, and Lizard's tail immediately killed him. This time there was an exchange of words between Nava and Tisu, and it was expected that Nava did not like the young soldiers, especially the confident expressions on their faces. After a while the big door opened and spewed out many captives. They could hear the talk of the monster hunters. The expressions of the monster hunters, especially Tisu and Qianwu, became novel, gloomy. Pleased with what he witnessed moments later, the smiling Nava gave orders to many monsters before they ordered them to start eating people. This time the monsters immediately rushed to eat people, but the monster hunters immediately protected them. This time Nava was satisfied, knowing that in the end everything would be in his grasp, and the strongest would be the first to disappear. The network immediately blew off the heads of the monsters that were trying to attack the captive humans here. You can see their terrified faces this time. Tisu thought that according to this, he still needed time to blow off the monsters' heads. Here she gave Dam the order to secure the people and buy time while fighting the monster. The Tissue replied that she couldn't do it because she had used too much blood to search for directions here. Tisu was asked what she should do. There were signs on her face that she was having trouble thinking of what to do here. Nava spoke according to this. She was thinking carefully and hadn't thought of how to escape when Tisu heard this. Her teeth were gnashing in anger and tension. A few seconds later she yelled at Qianwu